Back at Daytona International Speedway, the Rolex 24 continues. Felipe Albuquerque in the number 5. The Mustang sampling Corvette from Action Express Racing right there through the bus stop. But right behind him, that familiar black number 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing, Max the Axe Angelelli behind the wheel. And about an hour or so ago, we watched Angelelli battling back and forth with Pipo Derani, the 22-year-old Brazilian, and you could understand why he got the name and still has the name, the Axe, just slicing through traffic.
And that was that's the kind of thing that can decide the race. And you know, if Johannes hadn't seen him coming at the last second and turned in and they had collided, or you know, the way things work, these cars, that car is so good on the brakes, and people aren't going to make it easier to get by from here on out. So you know, we heard Ed Brown say the time's clicking off too slow. Well, I'm pretty sure the 5 guys be willing to flag it right now. You know, he better hope that a few laps click off until they can get Pipo back in that thing and see if he can take it to the front.
I think you're right. For Corvette racing right now in GTLM Corvettes, they're trying to do what they did last year, and that's take a victory with the number 3, but problems with the number 4 with a penalty right there. Let's go to the Corvette camp and Chris.
Yeah, Brian, last year was a great year for Corvette. They won the Triple Crown, Daytona, Sebring, and Le Mans. And Doug Feehan, program manager, has been up here on the booth all night long. Doug, we just saw that penalty there in pit lane. Now, you know, we've got spotters on the roof. The team has spotters back here helping out with looking at our broadcast feed and everything. Is that come down to just the driver responsibility at the end of pit lane, or is some of the team trying to help them out there too?
No, we share that responsibility. We have a warning light right up here in the pit box. This is Marcel's first visit to Daytona, so we needed to be extra vigilant to help him out. This is a difficult race, both mechanically and physically. And it was one of those things that we just flat missed.
So right now, I mean, we're seeing an incredible battle in GTLM. So many cars still in a position to win this thing. What do these drivers need to do to try and get to victory lane?
Well, right now, fatigue plays a huge factor. The ability to get them in the car, get them in a rhythm, and get them focused helps battle that fatigue. If it's interrupted by yellow flags and there's a lot of restarts, there's nothing good that happens there.
Okay, Tommy Kendall wants to ask a question here, so just hold with me. What do you got, Tommy?
Hey, Chris, talking about not missing things. When the 18-hour mark came, we saw the 2 Corvettes hook up and literally draft past for the lead in GTLM, and they called him and said, this is the lap you've got to get by. Talk about that and what that felt like to literally nose into the lead for the 18-hour points.
Tommy's talking about at the 18-hour mark when you had both cars hooked up, draft into the lead, and then really working together at that point in time to try and pull away. What is that like, and what does that mean with this team all working together like that?
You know, historically, that's what we've always done. Last year, we sat on the pole, and we sat on the pole for that same reason. Those 2 guys hooked up down the back, and we flushed a lap. I mean, it was awesome. But that's what we do day in and day out. You saw it one more time this past year at Le Mans, 24 hours when we brought 1 car and we won.
All right, man. I think we got to get you a throat lozenge, all right?
It's been a long day.
All right, hopefully we'll see you in a couple hours in victory lane.
Thank you, buddy.
Well, I think the engine in the 5 car may sound like Doug Feehan's voice, because this happened just moments ago. Felipe Albuquerque across the lines down into pit lane, thought it was going to be a stop. It seemed out of sequence, and then right behind the wall, straight to the garage. We understand that there was some smoke in the cockpit, but that car drove straight in. They knew exactly what they needed to go to work on, and the crew is headed to work. But you talked about it. It is not over until it's over. We were talking about strategy before, and it's like, hey, you can't count anything out. And speaking of that, the 85 that leads in the prototype challenge category with a big lead over its nearest competition, understanding it is having some issues right now. Some fluid perhaps being dropped by the 85. They have a 5-lap lead over their nearest competitor, but hey,
it was
still a long way to go.
It was more like 10 laps before, so I mean, they still got quite a bit in hand, but that car looks pretty beat up. So and we're getting word now that the 5 is maybe going to come back out of the garage. We sure hope so, because they've had an incredible run. Obviously, Scott Pruitt was looking pretty good. Well, no, not yet.
No, not yet. The first report was engine. The second report was smoke in the cockpit, and sometimes that smoke can be in the cockpit because of a catastrophic failure in the back. But Matt, you have more on the 5?
The crew members are working on the back of the 5, and I just spoke with Christian Fittipaldi. Very similar issue to their teammate on the 31. Rear axle, left rear axle on the 5.
Is it the axle or is it the CV boot?
Right now, Not exactly sure. Just that's what Christian told me. They're looking at it more. I'll dive in more here in a second.
I say the CV boot, but where the axle joins into the transmission on this racetrack, because of the banking, it puts a severe load or can on that drivetrain, and a lot of times you get a lot of angle as that axle heads in.
Think about this car. Other than the penalty at Coda, has completed every lap of the last 2 seasons.
So there's a new axle assembly in the crew member's hand there to screen right. He's got that ready to go in. They'll replace it. But the other thing is that could be catastrophic if it fails in the middle of the banking at speed. Talked about potential issues on the 85. Chris, what do you know?
Yeah, Brian, you were talking about our prototype challenge leader, Steven Simpson, behind the wheel right now. Just checked in with that team, and they say they aren't seeing anything. Steven's not reporting anything on the gauges. They said this race has been pretty much problem-free, and that's why they have such a large lead. But right now, they're paying attention to that car because obviously we're talking about it, but they're not seeing anything on their gauges.
43.9 was Steven Simpson's last lap. It's only a second slower than the fastest lap that anyone has run in that car, and that was much earlier in the event. So, but we typically don't see big mechanical issues with a prototype challenge car, but we did see the 54, your defending champions in the class for last season. They had an engine failure earlier in the event.
They did, and it's amazing. The last 4 hours seem to be as tough as the first 20. And year after year after year, the stuff that happens after the 20-hour mark is really incredible. You know, we've seen obviously the 5 car having its issue, penalty, all kinds of different stuff. Just it's like the gremlins that have been sleeping for 20 hours wake up and start wreaking their havoc.
Up on the banking, the 22 Porsche flashes by. Lee Keen behind the wheel right now, and that's a great story. They struggled last year, could not match the pace of their team car, and they have been quick in this new Porsche. Lee Keen, Cooper McNeil, full season drivers, and David McNeil, Cooper's dad, coming out. I think the last professional race he ran was probably well over a decade ago, wasn't it?
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know. It's he's obviously been a big steaming CV joint out of the 5 car.
And that's what I was talking about. Maybe not the axle itself shearing in half, but the CV joint there. And it's the same problem that the 31 had.
Wow. See, you know, they're running likely the same parts they've been running for 2 years.
Yeah.
That completed every single lap. Daytona, Sebring twice.
You have to go
twice.
back. You have to go back to when Porsche was running an engine in the Daytona prototypes here. When they were running their 6, they had problems with that, and it was all based upon the angle of the axle into the transmission itself. That was close.
Shoving the 540 aside.
In the 540 running second, that's Patrick Long. He's not one to be pushed around, but it just goes to show that, hey, these guys are getting aggressive right now. In the 62, several laps, 10 laps off the lead in GTLM, but still pushing really hard. Tony Vielander behind the wheel going, you're in a slower class, get out of my way, to a Porsche factory driver.
Yeah, look, you can see the effect that had on the gap to the leader. Lee Keen's been able to stretch away, and you see this stuff happen over and over, and it seesaws back and forth. See how close he is to the 22 at this point. Patrick, with that car with ABS, is able to get in there and arguably is good or better than the 62, and he just shoved him aside. I think Patrick saw him coming, and so made it less impactful than it would have been.
That Gas Monkey Viper hanging right there as well. He's several laps down, not in it for position, but great racing from here at Daytona. The stories, they continue. The drama, it continues as well. We'll be right back to Daytona. And the number 5 Mustang sampling Corvette, repairs completed. Felipe Albuquerque stays behind the wheel, and they'll get that car back on track, but now have fallen considerably down the order, being shown at least 5 laps down and maybe 6 by the time they get going again. Whoops. What were you saying, Tommy?
That's aggressive. Jim Conner in the garage area. I mean, you understand the emotion, the frustration. So, you know what? A hell of a job. I think they're six laps down, which, you know, obviously you cannot make up, but almost everybody's had some trouble. So,
well, I mean, yeah, it just takes another car to have a hiccup, another car to have a problem. Those axles, I mean, the 10 car is effectively the same car, different chassis, but it's a Corvette, same drivetrain in the back. And Albuquerque, I'm not sure that the handle's underneath it the way they want it to be. And he's now up on the banking and trying to get back up to speed. But hats off to the crew guys. I mean, you talk about frustration. They've got that frustration, but then they go to work, and you saw the steam coming off those axles. Everything in the back of this car is hot. And those guys dive in there. They've got some gloves on. They don't offer that much protection, and they get it done. We had the problem for the 4 car. Now, this is on board the 3. Top left, you can see the bright red light down at the far end. That's the stoplight. It's the 4 car that's just in front, the 4 Corvette. There's the light.
Red,
it's red.
Red, green.
And the 3, I mean, he just snuck in.
I'm not sure he was going to stop.
I don't think he was going to stop.
Like, my guy just went. I don't want to break off with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the 3 was planning on stopping, and the 4 just got caught right there at pit out. And you heard Doug say, well, Marcel doesn't race here a lot, and it's difficult. I'll tell you the other thing. Look at the window banner and how low it is. As you get further and further down pit lane, that light moves farther and farther up the windshield, and it could be that it just kind of disappears eventually and was difficult to see. But as he said, we as a team knew it. We had the light. We should have been talking to him all the way down, and we didn't. So, you know, Doug, we were talking about drivers yesterday saying it's my fault. Doug Feehan, who is the program manager there, just said, hey, we blew it as a team.
It just shows you. I mean, these guys make probably as few mistakes as anybody in this business, but they do make them. And so now they do have a little bit of time to recover. They're going to, you know, the way this class works, though, it could take you 6 hours to pull back 30 seconds. Now they've got 1:30 to deal with, so without yellow, it's going to be tough to do.
Yeah,
but
guys,
we'll probably get some yellows.
Yeah, they're looking for a yellow, and with this intense battle between the 90 and the 01, who knows, maybe you could get one. Mark Goossens, very experienced, and then you've got Lance Stroll right behind him, and obviously an impressive young man, good talent behind the wheel, but this is a very different car than he is used to driving, and Mark Goossens isn't going to just let him drive by.
No, this is going to be an interesting battle to watch, and so, I mean, just incredibly young. Lance Stroll, look at that.
Chevy versus Ford power.
17 years old, unbelievable. Got his sights firmly set on Formula One, doing most of his racing in Europe.
And he's got the talent to get there. He has some of the resources to help him get there, so he is in the catbird seat as far as trying to move forward in Formula car racing, and right now he's trying to move forward here around the high banks, trying to get a little bit of a draft, and it's a V8 in front followed by that turbocharged Ford behind. And once again, hats off to the officials here, the technical staff with IMSA. The balance of performance is very, very impressive.
Yeah, obviously that the P2 car, at least with Durrani and the 60 car earlier, showed to definitely have a little bit of a speed edge. But you know, in how many years have we been here where it was the other way around? We saw that Oak Racing car just through pure will and good execution keep themselves in contention a couple years ago. So fun to watch, and look at that 10 car out front right now by just not making any mistakes. Minimum time on pit lane, P1.
And don't keep rubbing that in about our bet that you won.
I mean, with that pass that Max put on him, I'm going to have to maybe share my appetizer and dessert with Max.
Yeah, I hear you. And Mark Goossens just getting faster. The fastest lap they've turned in that car came from Goossens, and it wasn't that long ago. But I'll tell you what, Lance Stroll looking really good through the tighter sections of the racetrack. It looks like Goossens maybe gets a little jump off of 6 onto the banking and out of the bus stop. But Lance Stroll, very impressive on the infield portion. He's good through traffic. It's kind of that cut and thrust from Formula 3 that he's used to. But think about the difference in those cars, an F3 car versus a Daytona prototype.
Interesting to hear his thoughts on how hard it's been to do really long stints, because I know when you see guys move up through the Formula car ranks, when they get into Formula 1 or IndyCar, the length of the races and the exertion and the focus is a challenge. I mean, imagine going Formula 3 to a 24-hour race and having to regroup and do it again a couple hours later.
The size of the car, the weight of the car, the aerodynamics difference, the horsepower difference, the roof over your head, how it feels, the amount of time you spend in the car, all of that is different.
Well, fortunately, he's got a really warm and fuzzy team owner who's just used to coddling drivers.
Yeah, I'm sure Chip was down there saying it's okay. In fact, if you go back to the roar, he really attacked coming out of the pits on cold tires and made a mistake, and I don't think anybody held anything back with explaining to him that was really not something that you do.
No, I just heard a story, and I won't use the name, but it was a couple of years ago, several years ago at the Roar.
Oh, use the name. Come on.
Okay. It happened. He's a hell of a driver. Darren Manning, when he was driving for Ganassi in IndyCar, and Michael Garrett told me this story. He said he came down and they said, hey, listen, we got to really give the curbs and the bus stop some room because it's hard on the suspension. And he hit it, tore the front suspension off, and they were fixing it. And Chip says, you can go home. He says, what do you mean? That was my first run. He says, go home. Come. We don't need you here anymore. Come back for the Rolex.
Oh. Coddling, huh?
Yeah. Warm and fuzzy.
Warm and fuzzy.
Like a big grizzly bear, not teddy bear.
Yeah, there you go. The 44, Andy Lally, now fourth in GT Daytona. Can Magnus Racing find victory here at the Rolex 24, the 54th running of this prestigious event?
Most people know PRS Guitars is a high-quality guitar manufacturer from Maryland, building guitars for the likes of Carlos Santana, Mark Tremonti, and Alex Lifeson of Rush. What many people don't know is that PRS has a strong foothold in motorsports and motorsports sponsorship. PRS's enthusiasm for sports car racing started with connections to Chevrolet and NASCAR, but can now be seen at racetracks around the world. Their relationship with IMSA goes back to their 2007 partnership with Grand Am, where PRS helped design unique trophy guitars for race winners. Now, in 2016, PRS Guitars sponsorship has once again aligned itself with IMSA. This company brings the same seriousness, tenacity, and attention to detail to their instruments as a top racing team does to motorsports.
So not only does the winner steal the headlines on Monday morning that you have won the Rolex 24, you get those great watches, you get a great trophy, you spray the winner's champagne, and also you get a cool PRS guitar. And Jack Higginbotham, I know you guys have so much passion for music, but also racing as well.
Yeah, we've been involved in pro racing for about 13 years now. So we had a lot of fun starting with Chevrolet and Corvette back in the old ALMS days. And I've been playing inside of Grand Am and IMSA now for 7 years. So we love tying these two worlds together.
World Center of Racing, and I know later on this year they're going to utilize this facility also for some rock concerts. So it's a great time. When you walk through the infield, it looks like a rock concert. So many fans.
Absolutely. And what they've done to this facility is outrageous. So they're ready for anything here, I believe.
Now, I know Tommy Kendo, he drives like a prolific champion. I don't really know if he can play, though, but I think he could go to the IMSA store and maybe get one of these himself and try.
Absolutely. We're here to try to grow a new breed of player by bringing these worlds together.
It would definitely be a new breed. TK, I think this is all you, my friend.
I'm going Stairway to Heaven. About all I can do is smoke on water, but I aspire to Stairway to Heaven.
I never said you could play like Jimmy Page, though.
Oh, he's in here air guitaring it right now. Oh, my God. Good stuff. And the PRS guitars are absolutely awesome. But from Tommy Kendall Rockstar, we'll head back down to Chris Devil with another Rockstar in pit lane.
Yeah, Boris said definitely the rock star who's crossed over from stock car racing to sports car racing. And Brian, right now I think we've got 8 or 9 cars on the lead lap in GT Daytona. Boris Said's car just 1 lap down. And Boris, you guys actually started this race 2 laps down because you had a battery issue with the car. Got yourself back on the lead lap. How are things going?
Yeah, things are going pretty good. The Sun Energy One Audi has been running really good. We have some kind of issue with our straight line speed. I don't know if it's a balanced performance or we have a technical problem, but so it's hard to race with the guys because Daytona really is a lot of straightaway. But we've been doing good through the night, and we have a chance to get in the top 5. I think we're going to fight hard till the end.
Yeah, I was just talking with your crew chief, Mike Johnson, and he was saying he thinks he's in a position where on the next round of pit stops, he can get you guys back on the lead lap. If you get back on the lead lap, what do you think you can do from there?
Well, we're going to put Tristan in at the end. He's really fast, IndyCar driver, so he's carrying the weight of the team on his shoulders, but it's going to be hard to fight for a win, but I really think we get in the top 5.
You've run so many of these 24-hour races, and right now we're seeing a lot of mental mistakes, not only on the racetrack, but also here in pit lane. When you think about this race compared to the Daytona 500 and racing in a pack of 43 cars, mentally, which is more challenging?
Well, Well, this is just really long, and it's really hard for the crew and everybody because you're up for 30 or 40 hours. So it's a long night. When you're 53 years old, you're not used to being up all night long. That's for kids. But, you know, they're both hard. They're just different.
All right. Good luck, Boris.
Thanks.
Well, the problem is not only the issues that they've had, but right behind them is the leader. Mike Johnson says, I maybe can get a lap back. Well, he's going to need more than that because it looks like the 22, Lee Keenan, it may get back around and put the 9 another lap in arrears. There's the 540 of Patrick Long, that beautiful Porsche in the background, and there it is. Lee Keenan's gotten around him.
Yeah, what he needed to stay on the lead lap and then get the yellow because they've got a lot more fuel. They've got a window between when the 22 is going to have to pit and when they're going to have to pit next.
Well, and the straight line issue that he's talking about is visible. You see it right there as the Porsche begins to pull away, but it's not a straight line issue, I don't believe, on the Audis in general, because you see the one from Magnus Racing running up there and has run at the point, and they're very quick, so perhaps just an issue with that particular car. There's Patrick Long, the second car in shot, that metallic green and white 540. Absolutely stunning livery on that car, and it's good to see Black Swan Racing back in endurance racing. Tim Pappas and his group had been out of endurance racing for a while. Now they're back in, and this is going to be a pretty spectacular lineup for the season.
Yeah, Tim moving from the AMG SLS car they ran in Pirelli World Challenge, and he's actually a new neighbor of mine. He's from the Boston area, but decided he was working on some business stuff out west, and I ran into him and his wife at the opening of the Peterson Museum, and I think they're New Californians. So, but he's teamed with Patrick Long. Little trivia factoid. Tim owns a kind of a cult car, the Porsche called Yellowbird that Roof built a while ago, and it showed up at these new events called, I'm going to mess it up, Luftkult, which is air-cooled, which is an event that Patrick Long created with a gentleman named Howie Idelson, and it's become just an incredible gathering of air-cooled Porsches as we see the Visit Florida come in for the pits.
Goosen's behind the wheel, and
didn't look like they were totally ready for him.
No, it didn't. And then the car rolled a little bit, so just a little bit of a hiccup. And
I think they might
a little investigation in the right front. I guess it was routine, but everything just looks a little slower paced than perhaps I'd like it to be.
Giving a good look at the brakes.
Yep. But you've got time because the fuel's going in. And, yeah, but the fueler beat the tires, and that's not what you want. Now there's a crew member going into the cockpit.
Yeah, it was not routine, and they do the normal service first, so they're going to have to do that, and then they dig into what is next.
Understand there was some type of a steering problem, is what Mark Goossens was talking about, so he'll begin to drop down the order. Meanwhile, Angelelli out in front, and they've got to be looking in their mirror, though, for the two. Yeah, they were talking about a steering issue to the left, and yet when he came into the spot, he has to turn left. Be interesting to go back and look at how he gets in, whether it was a real shallow straight in.
It might be the assist is maybe working.
Maybe that's it. Power steering takes a beating around Daytona with all the loads that are put on the cars up on the banking. It's not an issue that is rare, whether it's in the GT category or in prototypes, and there is the leader as the 90 heads back out. This is what a routine pit stop should look like, a little more hurried, well orchestrated, and the tires should be on before the fuel is finished.
Max hopping out after doing an incredible job as a part-time pinch hitter, putting the car into the lead with a decisive move.
So impressed with Max Angelelli. I kind of questioned this a few years ago when Ricky and Jordan took over, and then when they went to an endurance race, it was that they were going to put Max in the 0-1 in as well, Lance Stroll behind the wheel. And I questioned it because he had been out of a car for a while, and he can be an emotional guy, and I thought, you know, is he going to try to prove that he's as good as the boys and all that, and could it be an issue? But I'll tell you what, he's accepted his role very well, and I don't think he's lost a step. In fact, I think it may have reignited the fire a little bit more.
Well, I can tell you how hard it is to be only in a part-time role. When I was doing that with the Vipers, it's incredibly hard to only drive every 3 or 4 months. Almost all the other third drivers, you look at the Fesslers, the Rockefellers, all those guys are sharp as can be racing in other series. He might be one of the few third drivers in one of the big full professional factory teams that only runs the endurance races, and that is not easy.
And there's the number 5. We saw the problems earlier with the half shaft for Felipe Albuquerque. I do love, and it comes from the ALMS days, and it's transferred over now into the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It was with us at Tudor. The position lights on the side, so great for us and television-wise, but also for all the crew and the fans. They can watch the cars go by and know exactly where everybody sits. You see the number 1 on the side of the 2, so a pit stop here. It'll be interesting to see if it's going to be fuel or if they'll take tires as well, Chris.
And we see the 2 car taking over the lead as the 10 car just pitted 1 lap earlier. And look at the bottom of the race car, looking at the back end, that rear diffuser, one of the strakes or one of the vertical planes is a little bit loose back there. So interesting to see how that's going to play out, if that can stay in that position. And Brian, like you said, were they going to take tires or just fuel? Right now, just fuel. Johannes Van Overbeek staying behind the wheel. And I spoke with Scott Sharp just a few minutes ago. I said, you know, as this race is playing out and we're getting to this kind of last few sprints to the end, what are you going to see as you're changing tires? You know, how does that compare to the Daytona prototype? He said that's the weakness with this car. It takes a good 2 to 3 laps to get heat in these tires and that car up to speed, and that's where the Daytona prototype has us beat.
Well, it's where they have them beaten. We've seen that especially in sprint races late in the going. You know, it takes a while to get the tires back up to temperature. But the other thing is the ability to keep the tires underneath them. They don't have to do a tire change, and these cars so gentle on the tires, you can easily double stint them, and in the night sometimes triple stint them. So it is not hard on the tires at all. I don't know.
He crossed the white line.
I saw you pointing at it,
yeah.
and you're not supposed to cross it. So we'll have to take a look.
You're not allowed to cross. You're not
allowed to touch it.
You got to wiggle. I didn't say nothing.
Narc. See how you are, Tommy? Anyway, you saw the car get a little loose on the way out. Perhaps saving it is okay to make sure that no damage is incurred. We'll be right back to Daytona. Here's a look at the number 2, Johannes Van Overbeek behind the wheel from Tequila Patron ESM Racing. And the way you win this race is you go fast and you avoid mistakes and you avoid errors. But Chris, looks like maybe another mistake from down there on pit road.
Yeah, the 2 car getting a penalty down here. And Brian, kind of the interesting thing is just about 10 minutes ago, I spoke with Scott Sharp about this because in the last hour we saw the penalty with the Corvette and the BMW. And I asked Scott, you know, hey, we're just a couple hours from the finish. Is this a time when you have the crew talk to the drivers and remind them, hey, we got to be perfect. We can't make those mental errors. And he said, you know, it might be a good idea, but we've gone over this stuff so much, I think we're in good shape. Matt?
Well, to be clear, it was not for what we saw on the pit out. It was for speeding. Entering pit road.
And that is going to hurt. But you still have time to make it back up. What's going on in the 90 cap? Matt?
And Mark Goossens hit pit road complaining the car would not turn left with the power steering. So Troy Fliss, you guys have worked on it. Have you fixed the problem?
Yeah, so right now we did. We had to change the ECU in it, so we think we got the problem solved. We don't know why. We've never had a problem with overloading ECUs here or the power steering. So hopefully it's something that's all it was. And we put another one in there. So we only got 3 hours to go, and pretty grueling race here. But it's been a good weekend for us, and I'm hoping that's the only problems we have.
How are you planning out your run to the finish from here?
We were trying to plan it out with Mark and Ryan to finish it off here and not put Ryan DL back in. But I don't know. With this issue, we'll see what happens if we have to try to run the guys short periods of time. But these cars are so hard to drive on the banking without power steering, it's almost impossible. So we'll have to do something to try to fix it if this doesn't work.
Brian?
Attrition, you know, for so long there was so little of it, and now some of it is mechanical, but Chris alluded to it. We're seeing a lot of mistakes on the part of drivers on pit lane, crews making calls that are getting their drivers in trouble. You've got to avoid the penalties. The mechanical issues, sometimes you can't do anything about. The human errors, those you can.
Well, and this tip of the hat to the Visit Florida guys, because, you know, to think that we could fix the power steering by changing the ECU, and they've only lost 1 lap. So is impressive. Now, whether there's another problem that's leading to the overloading of the ECU is kind of maybe what he was alluding to. But impressive diagnosis, fix, and fingers crossed from here on out. Well, actually, now we're showing he's at the tail end of the lead lap. What happened, they really lucked out because they were right within about a lap of when they needed to stop anyway. So, you know, it's put them, you know, that's really impressive. They're on the tail end of the lead lap because he just clicked over to 6:39 right before Ricky clicked over to 6:40.
And that's the thing, getting a lap back here, you've got to get off strategy to get it done. And the problem is with 2 hours and 52 minutes to go, you can't get off strategy. You don't have time yet.
Well, they lucked out. They're not really off strategy.
Exactly.
So
that's what
maybe a lap. Yeah, maybe a lap difference.
To see where on the racetrack what the separation looks like, but a good job there to get the 90 back out. We talked about it, the loads on the banking just extreme. You see the 11 right there in front, the O'Gara entry, Townsend Bell behind the wheel. That car had run so well. Townsend and Bill Sweedler, his longtime teammate, defending champions in the GT Daytona category for 2015, and some problems. They had some electrical problems earlier, but they are so big on this O'Gara team. And on the Huracan itself, they said it's just an absolute delight to drive.
You're starting to see Albuquerque, you know, taking chances, and they have to. They are 6 laps down. And so I saw it when he came into the pits, really charging the pit box. And you're not going to make up 6 laps doing that, but you do everything you can. And he's got it in full attack mode right now. Big squeeze from the 62. Didn't want to let that GTD car underneath him. Look at that straightaway speed.
Well, and that's the thing that's odd. You're looking at a GTD car go past a GTLM car on the banking down towards turn 1. That was through the tri-oval, so perhaps a bit of an issue with the 62, or is the Huracan have that kind of straight line speed?
I think it might have that kind of straightaway speed. You know, we've heard people have been kind of cloaked about what they're saying, but the one car that they might have missed a little bit on the BOP was the 11 Lamborghini, and that's not Lamborghini's fault. It's hard to do, new car and so forth, but that car has been incredibly strong. When you heard Patrick Long saying, you know, there's been sand falling out of people's pockets and one car picked up 2 seconds, that's who he was talking about.
Good battles there, and you know, one of the things that we said at the very beginning of the show, we were talking about change, and this year there's been a lot of change, and one of the changes in the GT category, prototype drivers moving to GT, sometimes that's a tough change to make there, Matt.
Exactly right. Transition is everything, and just how smooth you can make it. Memo Rojas, 3 overall wins here in the Rolex 24. Currently, you are second in class. Are you done driving for the day?
Yes, I was done with my stint early in the morning. Right now it's up to Daniel Serra and Alessandro Pirghidi, who are going to finish the race both. And, you know, we're really excited. We're doing second in class. You know, it's a very tough class, and the Ferrari 48 is behaving amazing.
How smoothly have things been going, especially the transition for you coming over here?
Well, it's my first GT race ever. I've come a long way from open wheel cars to prototypes, and I actually never in my career drove a GT car. And I'm very grateful to Scuderia Corsa and Ferrari, who invited me to do this race. First of all, because I have the opportunity with a top level GT team, which is a Scuderia Corsa, and with a Ferrari, obviously. And you know, things are going so well. I adapted really well to the car, to the weight transfer of a GT car, which is very different to a prototype. And I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Memo. Brian?
Yeah, problem right now for Kyle Larson down in the West Horseshoe, car straight in it. Kind of an odd deal. He's more.
I'm guessing we're going to see this happened in the kink. I think this might be the same thing that happened to the Porsches. He's got it in reverse. He's trying to back it out. The radiator's clearly damaged. But this is going to, if we have footage of this, this is going to be a good one.
Well, good to see him trying to back it out. That means that he's thinking that, you know, he can move it, which means that he's feeling okay behind the wheel, we would suspect. But the safety crew going to go to work and make sure that Kyle is okay. But yeah, buried deep into the tires, that'll bring out a full course caution. One of the interesting things that Memo Rojas was saying, you and I had a chance to talk to him the other day, and I know you had plenty of experience in GT cars, then went to prototypes, back to GT. It's that amount of roll that a GT car has when you come from an Indy car or a prototype and you get into a GT race car or a Delta Wing, yeah, and you start to turn, the amount of roll and the time it takes for the car to really set takes some serious getting used to.
Yeah, it just happens much slower. Instead of it being boom, 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 it's boom, wait, roll, set. And he also, he was confusing it moving to take a set with it stepping out. And it took him a while to kind of trust that.
I remember the first time I drove a Trans Am car after driving Indy cars, I thought, went into the first high-speed corner, I thought it was going to roll over. Yeah. It just moved so much. And so can certainly understand Memo Rojas and his learning curve that he talks about. But the other thing that he said was it's comfortable to drive. You have to think about, too, by rule, the GT Le Mans cars have to have a climate-controlled environment for the driver. So he's got air conditioning, a comfy ride. He's liking the GTLM Ferrari, and why would he not? They're going to work on getting the 0-2 out of the tire wall. We're under full course caution. Would expect to see some strategy played out with pit stops when we come back. Cleanup continuing, the 21st full course caution we've had here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Kyle Larson, a problem in the West Horseshoe. This was the winning car from last year. It will not repeat in 2016. That is for sure. Interesting to note, this car did have a braking problem last night with Tony Kanaan behind the wheel, so don't know if it's the same issue or not. Let's take a look at the replay.
And I was wrong. He did not get off at the King, just got in too hot, it looks like, or some sort of a braking issue. But there's some of the brakes are working somewhat because there's a lot of tire smoke. But and this is, you're going to see him
up at the top of the screen,
carrying quite a bit of stuff in there, speed in there, tires flying, pretty straight on shot. Tough break, and that just shows you miss. Whether I don't know how close he was to a pit stop, 6:30. So he was not. It wasn't a tire temp issue. Just running by himself, probably trying to take advantage of the clear track and get in deep and carry some speed. We noticed Kyle didn't get out of the car. He was NASCAR style. He's like, hey, let's get this back to the garage. We'll fix it. And then they told him what the front looked like, and he finally got out. He's fine.
He got out and walked away, which was good to see. Interesting to see. And maybe we can talk to him when he gets back, whether it was an error or a problem with the brakes again. We talked about it. You get late in the race and you make mistakes. We saw drive time issues. It's a team sport. Thanks to Calvin Fish for working the telestrator there for Tommy Kendall. My concern is Calvin may be over booth time. There could be a booth time violation here late in the going, so we'll have to get an official ruling on that. Well, we'll take a quick break and we'll determine whether Calvin will be able to come back because of booth time.
Whether he's going to get paid.
Well, yeah, he may lose all of his pay if he's over booth time. But for Kyle Larson, 2016 is not going to end up with a Rolex on his wrist. Find myself sitting here with a smile on my face watching all of that historic footage.
That last shot of Bobby Rahal on Victory Lane with the Style Auto team was the first Rolex I attended as a 13-year-old spectator with my dad.
Not that it stuck in your mind or anything. That's a memory.
Lit the fire.
And it continues to burn, I think, even to this day. GT pit stops underway. And with 2 hours, 37 minutes, and a few seconds to go, you got to get that strategy right now. You've already done your drive time. You've figured out who is and who isn't. You know who your closer is. You've tried to back that up. And look at this race down pit lane. Everybody on the pit lane speed limiter.
Those two cars need to fall in behind per the rules. Let's see how that works. Mario or whoever's in the 23 did.
But the
62 might get a call from the steward.
Be interesting to see. You're supposed to get out to the fast lane. That was the two GTLM cars, the red 62 from Reese, and then the Corvette, obviously GTLM machine, the number 4, and that was the GTD Porsche, Mario Fahrenbacher, who said, now I'm going to just get out of this and go over to the fast lane. I'll drop back a little bit. For him, he doesn't lose anything. He just drops back and slides in.
You can almost be a full car length ahead, but if you're not clear, the car in the fast lane has priority.
It's that bewitching hour or two, isn't it? We talked about mistakes, and you have to be careful not to make them. 23 car with a good finish here last year, but some problems this year, and they're not going to have that same finish. There's the 4 leaving the marks.
He makes a beeline over for the fast lane.
So now we understand that race control is going to put the 4 in front of the 62, because you were right, Tommy. The 62 needs to get out there, and if there's a car in the lane, he's got to drop in behind it. And I got my 22 and 23 juxtaposed. The 23 didn't have a good finish here last year. It was an 18th place finish. Then they came back with the win at Sebring. The 22 with a 2nd place finish. So,
and what we're seeing here is with that topping the fuel up at the end of the caution, we're seeing a play by the Corvette guys to try to pull the 4 back into contention. So just a lap or 2 of extra fuel might allow them to make a strategy play.
That's a good point. It's a sprint race now. 2 hours and 36 minutes to go. Most of the sprint races 2:45. So you are in sprint race territory, and everybody, it's been a long night. You've fought through problems. You've fought through dropping back, fighting your way back onto the lead, but you've got to put all of that behind you now. It's no time to be exhausted. That has to go away. You've got to run on emotion and adrenaline to the checkered flag with just over 2:35 to go. Safety car off the racetrack, and it's the number 10 of Ricky Taylor who will lead the field to the green. And this is what you want to see. You want to be a prototype on this restart with no one in front of you. See if you can get a little of advantage. It's the number 2. Look for the green and black prototype on the outside, but he's hung up. Johannes van Overbeek is in traffic as they head down into turn 1. See the 25 BMW going around the high side of one of the Vipers. That's the 93 that he flashes by. Van Overbeek beginning to pick his way through, trying to hunt down Taylor. And then a gaggle of cars. There's the 90, the blue prototype in the middle of that mix. He is your 3rd place driver overall, the 3rd place car. Visit Florida Racing. Goossens behind the wheel. They fixed that power steering problem, they hope. And now he can get back in the fight.
Now, it's easy to lose your head in that situation, and Van Overbeek has kept his. The reality is he needs to he doesn't need to take it to the front. He needs to keep it close and out of trouble, and so they can get Durrani back in and show that speed the car's had all race long. So we saw early on Joao Barbosa making a mistake on cold tires early on when he didn't really have to. He was kind of criticizing himself afterwards for it, but now you don't have time to recover from that. So even though it's frustrating to have all those cars in between you, he needs to just pick his way through there and be patient.
Goossens around the high side. He'll set sail and see if he can catch the prototypes in front. The 3rd car in the serial, no. The 4th car, I thought Van Overbeek might clear the Corvette into the bus stop, but he does not. And so he's held up just momentarily. Now Mark Goossens trying to get past the Ford GT in front, and look at the gaggle of cars. GT cars streaming through the bus stop.
A lot of cars still running well at this point after 21 hours and 26 minutes.
20 years ago, you wouldn't see that number of cars at this time of the day.
You'd have a bunch of stragglers, a bunch of guys that are in the garage area trying to get it running to finish the last lap of the day.
This is the fight for the lead in GT Le Mans. The number 3, Mike Rockenfeller, and then Daniel Serra in the red Ferrari, the 68, just behind.
Serra really whistling it in there into 1.
Corvette trying to do what they did last year. That's win here, win at Sebring, win at Le Mans, and of course, they'd like the Manufacturers and Drivers Championship as well. That went to Porsche last year in the Tudor Series.
Number 25, 3rd place at GTLM, Bruno Spengler on board now as the 5 car pulls motors away. A shout out to these 2nd and 3rd place cars, brand new cars with very few miles on them at the end of or in contention after 21 hours. Well, new cars, also both turbos, cars.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we alluded to this earlier. You think about Mark Goossens in the 90, just about 8 seconds in arrears of Ricky Taylor right now. They had that problem with the power steering, came in, almost lost a lap, and were well back. One caution, you're right back in the mix.
Yep.
Got to keep your wits about you, and even if you play the caution right, if you lose a lap, you can get it back on that caution period and then fight your way back to the front. Time's running out for that, though. On board the 25 down the back straightaway, and wow, out in, you see the 911 really dropping wheels in the bus stop, not really in contention anymore after problems in the overnight, but Patrick Pillay using every bit of racetrack and a little bit more. Now we understand that there's going to be a penalty on the 97, one of the BMWs from Turner Motorsports and GTD, for overboost. So that's something that obviously they're monitoring real time, and there is a boost limit, and they'll look for spikes on them. There's a little bit of leeway if you hit a curb and the car is up in the air and you kind of overboost for an instant, but
and it's overboost at every, there's a specific boost limit for every RPM. And for some reason, the Turner car was getting some overboost spikes in practice that they were alerted to, whereas the Rahal Letterman, the GTLM cars, were not.
And it's what I've been told is basically the same system, so it's just how it's controlled, perhaps. You also saw Steven Simpson in the prototype challenge car. He's still leading that class for JDC Miller Motorsports. There's the 97 on pit road. And on the right side of the screen, Ricky Taylor. You see that glowing red #1 just behind the door there. Once again, the leader lights that are such a great part of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We've seen them throughout the years in Tudor and back in the American Le Mans Series days. And we talked about them earlier. Really help identify positions in class. There's the 02 back in the garage.
It's not even off the flatbed, and they're already going to work. And even when they tip the slant, those guys someone will dive into the cockpit here. So no quitting those guys.
When you saw the engineer there with the laptop downloading some data off the side of the car. They're going to take that data and they'll learn from that.
Yeah.
They may have to remove bits and pieces just to get it off the flatbed, though.
It's possible. Quite possible.
As damaged as the front.
Now it's going to be interesting. Wayne said it sounded like because Jordan was feeling better than they maybe anticipated, they're going to try to use Ricky and Jordan to the end. At last chance, they said that they thought Ricky would finish, but he's been in the car for a good bit now. So unless they're going to put Jordan in for just one, maybe they've swapped and they're going to take Ricky as far as they can and have Jordan try to finish it off, who does have fast lap in that car.
You know, the only thing that strikes me with all of that is as you start to change your game plans. I know they're not going to make the mistake, or they said they won't make the mistake that they made last year with a drive time penalty, and I don't think that they will based upon the way they've played their drivers. But anytime you begin to make changes late in the going, it's easy to make a mistake and slip up a little bit. So we'll have to see how the strategy plays out down at Wayne Taylor Racing with the Konica Minolta team. Taylor, though, putting in a good drive right now, just about 5 seconds over Johannes Van Overbeck in the #2, but it's the 22 having a good run in GTD. They're back down in 4th right now, but we've seen that car at the point in GT Daytona, Chris.
That's right, Brian. We've seen it lead multiple times throughout this race. Cooper McNeil right now watching his teammate on the racetrack. And Cooper right now, I think in the top 5, we've got 4 or 5 different makes out there. As you've been racing against all these cars, the Aston Martins, the other Porsches, the Audis, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, how does everything stack up?
It's been pretty close. There's a couple cars that are pretty untouchable on the high banks here, like the Lamborghini. Just don't really have much for them on the banks. They're just so fast, but our WeatherTech Alex Job Racing Porsche has been flawless all race. None of us have ever put a wheel off the whole 24 hours so far. So we're looking pretty good, and I'm looking forward for the next couple hours.
Okay, so you've got a clean car, and now we're at that point where we're essentially at our normal sprint race time. What do you need to do to try and push that car back to the front?
Well, Gunner's out there right now, and unfortunately, there's a problem with his radio, so he can't hear us. He can't hear us, but we can hear him. So he knows what to do, and Shane's going to take it home from there, and he's just going to have to run flat out qualifying laps for the last stint.
And and your dad also racing with you this weekend. He was kind of a last-minute add to the team. What was that like when you saw your dad strapping into the car?
A little nerve-wracking, but no, he did a great job. He was running quick and never put a wheel off, never had any issues. The spotter was helping him out, so it'd be pretty cool to get on the podium with him.
It would be very cool, and we talked about the last time David McNeil raced professionally. We checked with our own Google service, which is Rick Radicek here in the booth with us. It was 1999 that David McNeil last ran professionally, and I know he gets in the car a couple of times a year and drives a little bit, but driving and racing are two different things. But you know, he's a cool guy and just said, hey, I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to race at Daytona with my son.
He's assembled an incredible collection of Porsches that he does some vintage racing in, but big difference between that and this. But done a nice job, no wheel wrong, and the car's in contention. Might get himself a Rolex.
Yeah, you never know. 6 different manufacturers running in the top 7 in GT Daytona right now. It's just that competitive here at Daytona. Great high shot from here at Daytona International Speedway. Daytona rising, and what a spectacular facility for such a great event, the world's first motorsports stadium. You know, a little while ago we saw Kyle Larson with a problem in the West Horseshoe with the 02. Let's check in the garage area with Matt.
Brian, Kyle Larson has been checked and released from the Infield Care Center. So did something go wrong with the brake system, Kyle?
We've had brake issues, since Tony had his issue there, and then it seemed like recently, before I got in, they started getting trouble again, and then probably 3 or 4 laps prior to me hitting the wall there, pedal started really soft, going really far, and they said that it looked like I just had front brakes, so I started braking earlier and softer, and there's a dip there in the 5, and I got into the brakes, pretty far before that, and as soon as I hit the dip, it just locked up and it wouldn't slow down, and got into the tire barrier. So hate it for everybody on this Target Chip Ganassi racing team, and just thanks to Ford and Ford Eco Boost for all they do for his operation. And I had fun, but it's definitely disappointing that I was the guy to wreck the car.
So you're going to talk to Chip about making sure you're in the lineup again for next year. You have so much fun with this event.
Well, I don't know what the plan will be with the DP car anymore, and I don't know if we could the GT car or not, but. Yeah, if you asked us all to run it again, I definitely would be up for it.
He's a good guy, and he does like running this. The first time he ran here, he was very disappointed in himself and said, I need to do better. He came back the second year and certainly was a part of the team that won, and he said, okay, I feel a little better now.
He ran a phenomenal race last year and again this year, and that makes some sense that and if you have front brakes only in a GT car, it doesn't slow you down as much. In a prototype, the rear actually does more of the work than the front.
So let me ask you this in all seriousness. This is an event where you're not going to have a perfect car at the end, or you rarely do. That being said, Frederick McVicky just turned that car's fastest lap in the 912 Porsche, but a lot of times you're driving a car that's a bit wounded. When you start to get in a car for your stint and the team says, hey, by the way, you've got this problem, and this problem, the big one being a braking issue, what does that do to your mindset as a driver as you're strapping in and you're going out into the unknown?
I mean, you just deal with what you have to deal with, but brakes, of course, I mean, really would sap your confidence. Yeah. And so, little vibrations, like we've seen this all along. That rear wing on the Porsche seems to have a shimmy. I don't know if that's something to do with the TV through the fence or something, but and that's also when you're being asked to charge if you're still in one of these 5 or 6 or 8 cars on the lead lap sort of battles.
It's the lead in GT Le Mans right there, Mike Rockenfeller. What a great add to this team, and really fortunate for Audi to say, yeah, go ahead and drive with the Chevy guys over there. We don't have a dog in the fight, so you're welcome to do it. And Rocky said he just loved driving this Corvette, talking to him at the Roar. He had a big smile on his face. He's such a good guy anyway. And talking to Dan Binks as well, back behind the garage area, he looked at me and said, man, this guy is the real deal.
Yeah, he said he was up to speed by about lap 3. And so, the fact that they have him in taking it to the end to set up Antonio Garcia speaks volumes, and he's just an assassin.
Daniel Serra behind the wheel of 68, that red Ferrari just behind from Scuderia Corsa. And I'm impressed. It's a brand new car, so is the BMW. We talked about that a lot, and certainly Scuderia Corsa has had access to their 488 for longer than Risi Competizione has, but just it's a beautiful car. It's been fast from the get-go, and knock on wood, relatively trouble-free, at least as far as the 68 guys go. And you look at the lineup they have with Pierre Guidi and Primat and Serra and Memo Rojas, and Rojas has adapted well, as we were saying, to the GT platform, but we could see a real shootout at the end of this thing.
I don't think could is the word. I think.
Well, don't forget the Porsche.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. And like I said, Makovecki just running the quickest lap of that car has done.
He's about 14 seconds in the rear of this fight right now, but full course caution will bring it right back. Right back. Working past the 51. That's lap traffic, and it's a different class. Rafael Gianmaria in the 51 as they go by, and looks like Serra beginning to close a little bit. I don't see any big differential on the banking, so the straight line speed seems to be very good very equal between the two makes there. But talk about straight line speed, that's the car that everybody's been talking about as far as being able to put the hammer down and get around the high banks here at Daytona.
Yeah, Cooper McNeil mentioned it. It's not really sour grapes. It's Richard Antonucci. This car is many laps down, but just ran the fastest lap of this class, and not by a little bit. One of the other Lamborghinis is within about 6 or 7 tenths, but it's about a second and a half quicker than the bulk of the field. So really, really strong car. And it's one of those things where I think everyone, I got the sense, even talking to the Lambo drivers before the race, that they looked like they'd swallowed a canary, and so they knew they'd somehow slip through. And I don't think it was a sandbagging issue. Maybe it was, but everyone's doing the best they can, and that kind of stuff happens when you're equalizing performance. They snuck one through, but I suspect there'll be an adjustment.
Well, yeah, I mean, here we go again. The GT Daytona Lamborghini Huracan chasing down the GTLM Ferrari down at the end of the
big hop off the curb of the 62.
But let me ask you this, though. If you know that as the team and as the manufacturer, does that message not then get delivered to all of the teams that are running the Huracan and saying, look, guys, let's be careful about the lap times that we run. Let's see if we can maybe carry our advantage for another race or two before we get caught?
It just shows what the racer that goes against that. They obviously work together all through practice and qualifying in the Roar, but when you're charging back, they're far enough down, they're not going to catch back up. But if you would expect this maybe out of a car that was 3 or 4 laps down. I mean, racers race, that's what they do, and so it's hard to, it's a little bit like OPEC. There's a huge incentive to break the deal.
Yeah.
And
always some economic twist or turn with you, isn't there?
Well, you like to tie the different stuff together.
Yeah, there you go. And to talk about tied together, I mean, I go back to this, and Rockefeller cannot shake Serra. He's there. One lap, it's 2 or 3 car lengths closer. The next lap, it may be a couple of car lengths behind, but lead hadn't changed much at all.
No. And just clicking them off. Rockefeller running, 45-2, solid, composed. We've got some more information down in the pits. Chris Neville, what have you got?
Well, Tommy, one cool story that we have followed for so many years is Team Seattle, the 23 car, and the Seattle Children's Hospital program, a program where this team has been getting donations for almost 19 years now. I think it goes back to 1997, and they've actually gotten over $6 million over the years from running this race, and all of that money has gone into building a pediatric cardiovascular surgical unit at that hospital in Seattle. A pretty interesting unit that allows doctors from around the world to actually watch through a videography program, actually watch the different surgeries that are going on in there so they can really learn and see what's going on. This weekend, they're hoping to try and get $500,000 from this race to donate to that program. And one new thing that the team is doing for this entire season is on the back of the crew uniforms, the over-the-wall crew. You can see they're branded the Cardiac Crew. That's something brand new. All year long, every position that the over-the-wall crew gains in pit lane is going to be $1,000 that's going to be donated to the Seattle Children's Hospital. This race so far, $20,000, and actually one pit stop. They made up 6 positions in pit lane, so $6,000 right there.
I can speak to the work they're doing, not just this group, but the whole Seattle Children's. I was the Grand Marshal at a vintage event last summer, and one of the guys that was one of the doctors spoke at the dinner, and it kind of made me feel like what I dedicated my life to was kind of cool and hard to do, but a little bit shallow.
Yeah.
And these guys eat, sleep, and breathe, like everybody here eats, sleeps, and breathe how to make their race car faster. These guys eat, sleep, and breathe how to make breakthroughs, both to treat kids that are going through stuff and how to keep it from happening in the future, and it was really inspiring.
Yeah, there's so many great things that are being done through motorsports that have nothing to do with motorsports. You see it right here with the 23 car. You see it with Camp Boggy Creek. You see it with the Austin Hatcher Foundation. You see it with the Children's Tumor Foundation. All kinds of great stuff. And there, look, there at the hospital, you saw the picture of the race car in the background. You can learn more at the Team Seattle Facebook page, but just awesome stuff. And it's great to be something that we're so passionate about and so close to understand that it can be utilized for greater good than just sitting there enjoying race cars go around the racetrack. So they've effected some repairs to the back. Running 10th in class right now, 2 laps down, is the 23. Cars are tired and worn out. Well, so is the crew. These guys have been working throughout the night, and they still have another couple hours to go. That is WeatherTech Sports Car Championship action. It's what we've been seeing here from the 54th Rolex 24 at Daytona. The weather, another great day here in Daytona Beach. 2 hours, 9 minutes to go, and lots of stories yet to tell. 10 out in front right now, but just saw Pippo Durrani get in the number 2. He's going to take that all the way to the checkered flag.
That's one of the major dominoes has now fallen, because not only have they put their ace in, they've also done it back timing the fuel as well. They did not have to stop now, but they're clear. They feel they're clear on driver time, and they feel like they can make it to the end on 2 more stops even if it stays green.
Yeah, Mike Rockenfeller still leads in the number 3 Corvette in GT Le Mans, and then in GT Daytona, Patrick Long is out in front, and there's stories throughout all the classes here. In Prototype Challenge, the 85 is led for most of the event. Steven Simpson still out in front as you look through some notables out of the race. The 60 back there being shown in 50th. The 55 Mazda came in with such high hopes in that new power plant in the back and showed very, very good speed. But Gremlins have taken them out of this running, but they have nothing to be ashamed about as far as the performance that they have shown. We saw the 2 in just a few minutes ago when we were in break. Chris, how was that stop?
Looked like a great stop. It was fuel tires. You guys saw Pippo Durrani get back behind the wheel. Johannes Van Overbeek get out, and I checked in with the team right before the stop. I just wanted to confirm 2 more stops from here. And Tommy, as you look at something like that, does that start to force everybody else's hand to come to pit lane now?
Well, they have something in mind, but they're running a risk now, because anyone that doesn't stop between now and the next yellow, look at them working hard to get some heat in those tires, that P2 tires, will now cycle to the end if they pit under the yellow. So that's kind of the game. But now with the Taylors, they're trying to conserve Jordan to make him as fresh as he can, given the fact that he hasn't been able to train like he wanted to.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Tommy, that was only a 21 lap for Johannes Van Overbeek. They've been going about 26, 27. So certainly they realized they were within that window. They're getting about a 45-minute stint here. So after the 2.25 hours to go, they were basically in that window where they could do it on 2 more stops. I think that's a great call, and there really is no risk to it. Chris is a great question there in terms of does it force the hand? And they do right there with the 10 on pit lane, Chris.
Yep, and it's just going to be Ricky Taylor staying behind the wheel, 4 tires and fuel on the 10 car. And I also spoke to the team before their pit stop, wondering about how long it takes for their tires to get up to speed in comparison to the 2 car. And this team saying only about 1 lap. And as we talked to Scott Sharp earlier, he said that P2 car takes 2 to 3 laps. So these out laps are going to be very important.
And away Ricky Taylor goes. You saw Durrani moving around, as you said, scrubbing tires, looking for heat on the back. Saw a big chunk of rubber come off the back of that car. Not uncommon. It gets picked up and held inside the bodywork, and maybe that just dislodged it. So kind of startles you at first when you see it, but everything should be okay. Talk about being startled. This is a good battle.
Richie Stanaway, Andy Lally battling for second in GT Daytona. Aston Martin versus Audi. And you saw Lally really closing up as they left the infield, but now that Aston Martin gets up and stretches its legs.
And Stanaway is an absolute gun in one of these GT machines. He has a good single-seater career going on as well.
And look at Lally close up. You could just having the win slip away at Petit really was a punch to the gut for Andy Lally. So they've switched cars. I think he's kind of re-energized. You know, really wants. And look at they're going to have to. Their Achilles heel here is definitely going to be straight line speed. We heard that from one of the other Audis as well. Boris was saying. So now that's where track position. If they could do what we were talking about in back time and somehow leapfrog on a yellow, because even if they're quicker on lap time, it's going to be hard for them to get around this Aston without a mix up in traffic or something like that because of the straightaway speed.
Now Lance Stroll is in there. Not going to do a driver change, should be a routine stop. Just a few laps in arrears, 3 laps when they came to pit road. So they'll continue to do what they've been doing and see if they can get a break somehow, some way, get back on the lead lap. But 3 laps is a lot to pick up as the time is ticking down.
And it's not just 3 laps on one car. They've got 3 cars ahead of them. So it's very unlikely that all 3 machines, the 90, the 10, and the 2, are going to have problems in the last few hours of this race. So looks like the Ganassi boys may come up a little bit shy this year, but great to see them back. And as Kyle Lancer mentioned, we really don't know where Chip is going with the prototype ranks in the future. They basically said these cars will be retired, but put back into some of the winning liveries of years past. One will be the BMW colors when they won with that engine, and last year's 2015 livery as well.
It's just overall leader there. Mark Goossens has not made the stop like the other cars going around those 2 GTD cars.
You see the battles around the racetrack and the classes affect each other. You saw Mark Goossens closing in on that Richie Stanaway, Andy Lally battle as you look at the 10 of Ricky Taylor trying to move back up to the front. And we've said this before, it doesn't have to be your fault. You get 2 guys battling hard for position in another class and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Can most certainly affect your race. The 85, the yellow prototype challenge entry there is that from JDC Miller.
Ricky's going to want to get around this 01 before he has full tire temperature. The 01, even though he's laps down, was running pretty well. He actually closed up onto the back of the 10 car right before the stops, but was able to get around him through the pit stops.
I tell you what, after the stops, I think the 10 car is a bigger spread on the 2 car, Tommy, so that's going to be significant. We know we've got Durrani in, who's run the fastest lap of the race so far, so he's going to be on it, but really important for the 10 team that they have good, clean pit stops here on through, and they're certainly executing at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said, you know, he's going to take him a little too longer to get the tire temp and the heat, I said he's going to want every one of those seconds if what we've seen from Durrani holds from here on out.
19-second gap at the line the last time by. That'll change as they come through this way. Meanwhile, back to the battle in GT Daytona. That's for second place. Richie Stanaway in the Aston Martin. Andy Lally gets the best of him, and it seems like the Audi is a better car on the infield, but the Aston Martin has the legs around the banking. We'll have to see this Aston beginning to drop back a little bit with the run off the corner.
Well, he's got more straightaway speed, but Andy Lally has an armful of Rolexes, so he knows how to get the job done around here.
He drives pretty good for a guy made out of Legos.
Let's check in with Chris Neville down at Wayne Taylor Racing.
And we see Jordan Taylor resting behind the wall here. You're going to finish this race, Jordan. You saw your brother come in, do that final, that pit stop there. You got 2 more to go. When you saw Pippo Durrani get in the 2 car, and you're thinking, that's who I'm going to be going up in that last stint to race to the finish line there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they've been the quickest car all race, other than the 60 and the 0 who are now out. So we've had our eye on them the whole race. They seem to be able to make passes easier than anyone else. Kind of with their straight line speed advantage, so we just got to run our race. There's still, you know, a sprint race to go here, so a lot can still happen, but we'll keep pushing.
I know you've been feeling a little bit ill the past couple weeks, but one thing you tweeted out early this morning is the best medicine is being in the race car. How has that been? I mean, has it just kind of changed how you felt, or you know, the last 2 weeks just being difficult leading up?
Yeah, it's obviously been a long or a tough road coming to this weekend. We weren't planning on driving at all, maybe one lap in the race. Once I did a stint and a half yesterday, I felt good in the car, and then as soon as I get out, I kind of feel sick again. So I'm looking forward to getting back in and making the Mambas proud.
Yeah, this has got to be making Ricky Taylor's blood boil.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's enough time left. Lance Stroll, if they get a yellow, he makes up one of those laps. So, you know, when a lap down car is holding you up, it makes you furious. But, you know, they're only 3 laps off the lead. And so if he could get a yellow, you can't really expect him to pull over.
You can't expect him to pull over, but you know you wish he would. My question is, has anybody from Wayne Taylor been down to talk to anybody at Ganassi yet to say, hey guys, really, you want to let us through? And you know the answer they're going to get.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
in this race too.
Exactly.
Looking at those 2 last lap times, Ricky Taylor, no, his tires have got to come totally up to 10, but a 142.9, a 140.3 for Durrani.
Yeah,
you can't stay there. You can't keep doing this. You got to get by him and try to find some more pace. Ricky Taylor frustrated right now, and Pippo Durrani has the hammer down, looking for a win at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Ricky Taylor continuing to lead here at the Rolex 24, but Pippo Durrani beginning to close down, and Taylor frustrated with the 0-1 of Lance Stroll in front of him, and the crew egging him on to try to get by and get away.
Map 5 now, Ricky. Map 5, please. We need to go. Map 5.
Map 5 is one of the ECU settings, you know, fuel mixture settings. It's probably their most aggressive.
Gives him more fuel to burn, more power. And that last lap, Durrani took 2.5 seconds out of Taylor's lead. It's now down to 9 seconds. It's about 15, 16. Just 3 or 4 laps ago, so that lead is coming down quickly. And I agree with you, Tommy. I mean, the Ganassi boys are not just going to let Stroll let him by. I mean, if they can stay where they are, if there was a yellow, they'd pick up Ricky Taylor and go around to the back. If they can get another wave around, they're only a lap out of this thing at that point.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
you can't ask them to do that. It's incredibly frustrating for them. Now Stroll has gotten his tires hot and he's running good laps, so he is not holding Taylor up at this point. I mean, it looks like it's kind of the inevitable. If Durrani, the speed he's shown, the fast race lap, but the difference between Durrani, the P2 base cars and the DP base cars, it's like 1.4 seconds. So it's not a matter of a couple tenths.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. And if you look at what Durrani's doing, he's only about a half a second off of his fastest race lap that car has turned. But when you look at Ricky Taylor, he's about a second and a half off of their fastest race lap. So they've got to find some pace in the 10.
Well, they reversed that. Ricky's last lap, he actually put 2 tenths back into the lead.
There he goes.
He ran a 40.9. So traffic's going to affect that as it comes and goes, but it's going to be interesting to watch this. If that, you know, if we stay green and there's no trouble for the 2 car, they're going to be hard to hold off.
This could be a big day for JDC. Miller Motorsports is Steven Simpson behind the wheel there. Car has run up front since the drop of the green, and they are only an hour and 55 minutes away from putting Rolex on the wrists of all those drivers.
5 laps up on the number 52 car that is the defending race champion, Tom Kimber-Smith. Their bullet in the gun is behind the wheel right now, and they'll just be telling him, keep doing what you're doing. Remember what happened last year when they had a deficit to the 54 car and everything changed in the final moments of this race.
And Frederick Makovicky has been flying up front in his Porsche. The fastest race lap for that car was turned just about 15 minutes ago, so even though it's been running for 22 hours, it still has plenty speed left in it. And Makovicky leads an impressive field behind him. Bruno Spengler and the BMW. Brand new car showing great pace, and Marcel Fazler now in the 4 Corvette being shown in 3rd, and then the 3 of Antonio Garcia. So Porsche, BMW, Corvette running in the top 3 in GT Le Mans. Pat Long now on pit road. He was 2nd in GT Daytona in the 540 for Black Swan Racing. Driver change going on there. Looks like a routine stop. What you got to be worried about as a crew member is that air gun on the right rear. You see that hose got pulled up underneath the car. Needs to do a conscious effort to get it out from underneath before they drop it, or it'll be trapped there. There you go. Good yank, and gets that out of the way. No penalty for running over a hose. We've seen plenty of those penalties throughout, and
issue with that
stop.
quarter window there.
Yeah.
Looks like they're addressing. Patrick Long out, Nicky Katzberg going in for to the finish now.
Not a mark on that car.
Nope.
Looks absolutely beautiful.
Stall. Precious seconds.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a quick fill they're doing in that quarter panel or not, but look at that car. It's beautiful design. It looks like it's relatively unmarked, Tommy, at the end of 22 hours plus.
Contrast with the tie-down strap. Now it's dragging the diffuser behind it. It's come completely detached. The new 911 is the GT3R is a beautiful, beautiful car, though, isn't it?
And they're going to have to come in and have that removed, whether or not the officials tell them to or not. That's going to begin to affect the car as it flaps around behind it. So expect to see the 23 back on pit road, even if it comes off the strap. Then the strap is there and loose, as we saw before. So not the day that they wanted for the 23, but they were 18th place in points here last year. So
a lot of teams looking at this thinking, if we need a yellow, please fly off and stay in the middle of the road.
of the racetrack. And there we go. And there it is.
Okay, where did it end up? If it's up on the racetrack, it's a big enough piece. They may have to throw a yellow.
Mario Farnbacher behind the wheel, and that had to be there on the racetrack. It's got to be fastest part of the racetrack. So unless it traveled up and out, it's right along the wall.
Doesn't look big enough to be the piece that we're looking
at
right
blue
there.
attached to it,
but it's got the in relation to the cone that is above it.
Get a little zoom shot maybe again.
And it was blue, and
might be.
Well, that means they don't have to stop now.
Yeah.
Right.
At least in terms of from a safety. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Yep.
That's the piece. You see
the
safety strap on it.
broke, it looks like.
But now the diffuser is hanging down and I think dragging the ground, so don't be surprised to see it in. There's the better shot of it.
Probably going to leave it. I mean, it's up in the area where you shouldn't be at this stage of the game.
The marbles are. The clag.
And that's right there around the pit commit line, I think.
Be the kind of thing that, in the interest of keeping the race green, if there is a yellow, they'll address it, but probably not bringing a yellow out for that.
So now the diffuser beginning to drag in the back, but no drag up front. Ricky Taylor giving it all he can, trying to keep Pippo Durrani behind him. Still an hour and 50 minutes to go in this 24-hour event from Daytona. You ride on board the Corvette C7 of Antonio Garcia through the tri-oval at Daytona International Speedway. The Rolex 24. Coverage will continue at 1 o'clock on FS1. See the 98 just in front, trying to get past GT Daytona traffic. Out of the west, or the international horseshoe, I should say. It's Garcia now behind the wheel, running in third position, being shown a lap down, and it's just kind of the ebb and flow of the pit stops that we've seen. What's impressive is Marcel Fessler in the 4 had that problem early on, got the penalty for running the red light at pit out, and he has worked his way back onto the lead lap.
What's going to be really interesting with GTLM, looking at the 912 of Freddie Macavecchi and Marcel Fessler. They're about 27 laps into this stint. There was a yellow early in it, so they should be able to go to about 30 laps. Well, if you look at the clock, about an hour 47 to go. They're doing about 50-minute green flag runs. So if they can get to an hour 40, they can do it on one more stop. So this next 5 to 7 minutes is critical for those guys.
And that's exactly why the 4 car topped up at the end of the last yellow.
Right.
Also saw the 5 car on pit road serving a drive-through penalty, spinning the wheels while up on the jacks, and we've seen that penalty handed down at least a handful of times throughout the event.
If it works out that way for the 4, talk about making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, no kidding.
It has a penalty which forces them to think differently. They think differently. They make the most out of it, and the way the chips fall, it's actually an advantage.
For Ricky Taylor, the mirrors on these prototypes are not that big, and you can't see that much, but I'm sure as he rolls off of the banking and down the straightaways towards the bus stop, he can now see the bright green and black number 2. just a half a second last time at the line. Pippo Durrani closing in, hunting down Ricky Taylor for the lead here at the Rolex 24 as the 0-1. Lance Stroll comes to pit road.
Well, that's the good news for Ricky Taylor, that he doesn't have him to clear now. So I think he was at times holding him up a little bit, even though they got gapped in traffic. But Durrani's the man on the move, and there's really not much of a strategy call they can do with the 10 car right now. They've probably got about 10 minutes flexibility in when they decide to pit him to do it on just 2 more stops. But outside of that, just got to go out and drive the wheels off and hope traffic plays a part here.
Oh, but it is on right now. And you talk about traffic, they're about to go through a lot of traffic in both GT Daytona and GTLM. Mark Basing there in the Lamborghini Huracan. True professional lets them by, but you've got other cars just in front. Ricky Taylor is going to be the one who has to open the door, and Durrani can take advantage of that.
Let's see how much patience this young guy has. We saw him in the grass earlier. We saw him make a move as the green came out at the start of the 24 hours. So he's a young guy that's fired up. He's incredibly talented. Now he's got to just pick the right moment. There's no rush to get by here.
Ricky is one of the fastest guys in the class, but I don't class him as one of the more aggressive style drivers, Tommy. So it'll be interesting to see how vigorously he defends this lead to Durrani.
Leader in GTLM is in. Matt?
And just waiting for fuel. 4 more seconds left. 3. All right, he's pulled the fuel hose away. Bomber has gotten in. Chris?
And Matt, a little further down pit lane, the 4 car is in. Marcel Fassler getting out. Ollie Gavin getting behind the wheel. And Calvin, you were talking about, was it this car that needed to go about 10 more minutes? I was trying to check in with the team to see what their pit strategy was. You thought that the 4 car needed to go about another 10 minutes? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. But let's get back to the battle up front here.
Okay, because I did check in with the team, and they said it was going to be 1 more stop after this one. So if you think they need another 10 minutes, boy, they're going to be on fumes if they're going to try and do it 1 more time.
Well, we talked about patience for the 22-year-old Brazilian Pippo Durrani, and his patience didn't last very long. He used some traffic to work his way by. Nothing dramatic, but to use the speed as well.
Yeah, when you've got that kind of straightaway speed advantage, you don't have to be patient. You just have to wait for the next straightaway. He swept around the outside. Ricky made him go the long way, but when you got that kind of speed advantage, you don't have to.
Now what can Ricky Taylor do? Can he stay with him? He's got to stay close.
Well, I think what they have to do, I think if I'm the 10 car right now, as soon as your fuel window opens up to do it on just 2 more stops, I mean, you got to do it. And then just hope that there's a yellow and then the 2 car gets stacked up. Do you know what I mean? Pit lane would be closed potentially and they'd lose some ground that way. So I think as soon as the window opens for the 10, I'd roll that dice.
Even that, based on what we just saw, doesn't really help you. If it was a real track position race where it's really hard to get around someone, but even if they leapfrogged him again, you turn the little Pippo loose and, but
he's going to be coming from behind you again. That's the only way. They're not going to overtake him for the lead. The only way they can do it now is with strategy.
I mean, but you try everything you can, and they've known since before the race started that the P2 cars, if they lasted and didn't have trouble, were going to be really hard to beat. And what they've done is they just haven't beaten themselves. They've run a perfect race. They have spent the least amount of time on pit road. They haven't gotten tangled up with anyone, and that might still be enough if there's a little hiccup for that Patron Ligier.
I think the time on the clock to look for would be about 1 hour 30 to run in this race. They could stop then and do it on 1 more stop. About 45 minutes run is what they're getting right now. Do remember, Jordan Taylor gets excellent fuel mileage. He's beginning to go about a lap more than anyone else. That could be a factor too in how early they could make that pit stop.
Yeah, but Durrani just added a second to his lead that time by that Honda Ligier, absolutely flying. And now Ricky Taylor's going to have to work with traffic in front of him, both GT Daytona and GTLM, as you see the number 3 Corvette and the 22 WeatherTech Porsche. Shane Van Gisbergen in the 22. He's going to let Taylor by through the apex, and then he'll have to get past the Corvette in front. 2 consummate professionals. They're going to let the prototypes go as easily as they possibly can. But Taylor has to be frustrated as he watches that number 2 inch away.
So you got the lead in the leader here in the Patron car in prototype. He just passed the leader in GTD, which is the Magnus Audi. The 10 car was going around Van Gisbergen and the WeatherTech car. So right there, that's the gap between the gray Audi and the white Porsche for the lead in GTD. You got and you also have the GT Le Mans winner in there.
Feel like every lap the lead in GTD has been changing.
Getting back to Chris's point about the 4-car and the fuel mileage, I mean, they've been doing about a 50-minute run, Chris, and they've got to do like a 52-minute run based on when they start, both them and the 912. So if that's basically only about a lap, so if they can lean it out a little bit, get one more lap per stint, they could do it on one more stop to the finish here, and I think everyone else will need a stop plus a splash. And coming down pit lane costs you 30 seconds. That's a big delta to make up.
Well, as pit stops have cycled through, now the number 3 of Antonio Garcia has gone to the lead in GT Le Mans. Durrani still out in front and pulling away from Taylor. Great stuff going on here from Daytona, but we're about finished with our FS2 coverage of the Rolex 24 from here at the World Center of Racing in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're headed over to FS1 for the final 100 minutes or so of this race, and it has been absolutely spectacular. Coming up next on FS2, Big East women's basketball, St. John's and DePaul, but the fastest game in town, it's headed over to FS1. We hope to see you there. It is one of the greatest endurance races in the world. It is underway, and the competition has been intense. An hour and 40 minutes to go, and nothing is settled yet.
Coming to Daytona is mind-blowing. You see the grandstands, this racetrack, so I'm on a high, actually.
It's like our Super Bowl starting at the beginning of the year.
You see the best of the best, and it's not just the best sports car drivers. To me, it's the best drivers in the world.
It's not often that you get such caliber of drivers in one small area. I can't wait for the Daytona 24-hour to kick off.
Whether you win here or whether you're on the podium, it's an incredible experience. It's a tough 24 hours.
It's the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It's a who's who of professional sports car drivers from around the world and some of the best manufacturers you can imagine. Welcome, everyone. Brian Till, Greg Kramer, Calvin Fish, Tommy Kendall in the booth, Justin Bell, Matt Yoakum, Jamie Howe, and Chris Neville down on pit road. We talk about the greatest endurance event in the world, and it has been awesome from the get-go. New manufacturers for GT back at the 24 Hours of Daytona.
And it showed that it hasn't all been PR hype. Joey Hand taking that car to the front and actually leading laps. They had trouble pretty much right off the bat, not quite, but some tire issues and so forth, so they haven't had the run they want, but the cars are legit, they're contenders, and they are gorgeous.
Robbed on the pit stop. Looked like a brake line got knocked off here when they were doing the wheel change, cost them a few moments in the pits. Then further transmission errors with the 66 after the 67 had similar issues earlier in the going.
Just some teething problems, so to speak. The number 2, the Ligier Honda from Tequila Patron, has been spectacular throughout, but the Delta Wing was absolutely flying. They did not qualify. They didn't want to go out in the rain and put the car in too much risk, and Catherine Legg took it to the front. She was spectacular.
Moment here in traffic with John Pugh. Gets into the back. Johannes van Overbeek. Just minor damage to the left front corner of the 60 machine. No penalty. Both cars continued, and as we know, the 2 cars been in great shape for the remainder of this race.
We talk about risk for the Delta Wing. Well, the risk in turn 1 after Chris Cummings spun his prototype challenge just too great. Andy Merrick didn't know the car was there.
Didn't know the car was there, but I mean, the car was truly the fastest car on the premises, and a promising run cut short in a dramatic way.
Here we see a moment just after a restart. Jamie McMurray gets a little bit too aggressive on the subsequent lap, gets into the side of the Corvette and spins the 02 car out of the lead.
And Mazda back in form. You see the 55 right there giving chase to Mike Shank's entry, the number 60, another Ligier Honda. The Shank entry very, very quick throughout the event, but would eventually retire in the nighttime with an engine problem.
One of the issues the Ford GT had was some right rear tire failures. They had a couple, and this one in particular damaged that rear diffuser. They got to show off how serviceable that car was. They were able to change the diffuser in like 20-something seconds, but costing time by limping all the way around. Now here we have trouble with the 02 heading for the garage area with brake trouble also.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan went straight on at turn 1, had to take it to the garage. Then the big moment in this race, the number 60 car retired with engine failure. Lights out for Oz Negri.
Oh, and a fire on the 31 during pit stop. You can see the fire on the fuel rig and on the refueler himself. That got put out.
Lucas Lur there loses a front brake rotor, goes hard into the wall. The number 100 is retired.
A big crash in the middle of the night down into turn 1.
Two of those beautiful, fast new Lamborghinis getting into each other. 48 was looking the best at that point.
Why, the 48 had led in the category, and then a problem for the 911.
Driveline issue with Kevin Estra behind the wheel. Lost many laps in the garage.
Porsche showing big speed. Another problem, not the traffic on the infield. That car's not supposed to be there. That's the 73 Park Place entry in the GT Daytona category, trying to get back to the garage area.
Held up badly by that golf cart. And here we see Max the Axe being really opportunistic. Johannes was trying to be patient in traffic, and Max shoved the 10 down the inside there, really decisive, making an impact even though he's only driving a few races. And this was dramatic. The 4 car going through the red light at the end of pit road, 3 not, stop and hold plus 60 or 30 for that car, 60.
And a problem for the 23 as well. They had a stop and hold plus 330. And then driveline issues for the number 5. The team car had the exact same problem in the middle of the night, and that is a drive shaft. You look over to the side, that CV just absolutely destroyed. They had to come in, change it. They are back on the racetrack, but right now 6 laps in arrears.
They are the defending champions of the championship the last 2 years. They've only missed 1 lap in 2 years of competition. That's not going to be the case today. Then Kyle Larson loses some kind of braking down into the hairpin there, straight into the tire wall. Defending race champs are out.
They had brake issues with the 02 throughout the night. Tony Kanaan had an issue with it, and then it crept back up. And Kyle Larson, unfortunate to be behind the wheel when that problem happened. You see the number 2 out in front. Tequila Patron ESM leading here in category and overall. We're going to take a quick break from Daytona, and then we will be back to the run to the checkered flag. An hour and 34 minutes left to go. Do not miss any of it. It has been intense, and that's a bit of an understatement. Plenty of racing to go from Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing.
Welcome back, everybody, to the World Center of Racing, the opening round of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. This storied historical race living up to the billing. And right now, this car in the hands of the young Pippo Durrani has been spectacular. The margin now up to over 7 seconds in the Tequila Patron ESM. That is a Ligier powered by Honda. Perhaps Honda on its way to its first overall win here at the Rolex 24. Second is the number 10, Konica Minolta Corvette DP from Wayne Taylor Racing. And the 90 from Visit Florida Racing sits in the 3rd spot. There is Ricky Taylor. And there's not a lot he seems to be able to do right now, Tommy.
Not a lot anyone can do about that Tequila Patron car. This is the kind of runs that they envisioned when they switched to the P2 category. Last year was a really tough one for that team, and this car is actually one on loan. Logistically, it was easier to borrow this car from Onroke and run it with their team guys. This is the same car Mike Shanko run at Le Mans. They might want to run it themselves after this run.
Yeah, it could be a beautiful thing, but there's still a long way to go. And we talked about, you know, what the 10 can do, and I think the only thing they can do once they get inside that 1 hour 30 mark, which we're at right now, they should be able to do it on one more stop. And if you stop, Tommy, just to reiterate, if they stop now, and there was a yellow before the 2 car came in, pit lane B closed, the 2 car would lose some track position. I think that's the only way they're going to get in front of them, but we're hearing they're calling about 5 laps before Ricky pits.
Yeah, there's it might be postponing the inevitable, but you might as well postpone it. What if there's a big wreck and there's a caution all the way to the end, you know? So you got to try to figure something out. Meanwhile, we saw Ryan Hunter-Reay in the Visit Florida car, now on board with the GTLM leader, or not on board, well, now on board with the GT Le Mans leader, Antonio Garcia. I was going to say about Hunter-Reay, as you look out the windshield at him, another almost perfect run for those Visit Florida guys. Same thing for Wayne Taylor. And Ryan Hunter-Reay is just a gamer. We see it in IndyCar, and they don't always have the fastest car, but the guy just brings it. He's super fast, super consistent, and just really always going forward. It might not be enough in this case, but they're going to give themselves the best chance possible by focusing on what they need to do.
Well, I mean, you can only pick it up and carry it by the scruff so much sometimes, and when you've got just a superior setup and a superior package in front of you, that's tough. Here, as you said, is Antonio Garcia, and working that it was borderline fuel strategy right now, but playing it out well. Great story here, I think. This Scuderia Corsa Ferrari in the hands now of Alessandro Pierguidi. Absolutely a superb run here. And when you take a look at the other Ferraris, the Risi car, it's had issues. Not this car, and Cal, it has been wicked quick this whole race.
It really has been an awesome performance by this team. At one point, they had this car running second in GTLM, and the number 63 machine was running second in GTD. It's now dropped a couple of laps back in the last hour of this race, but a great performance by that whole group, now led by Eric Bachelat as the team manager.
Here's the number 912, Earl Bamber behind the wheel. Of course, one of the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans last year in this Porsche North America machine. And Earl is always very, very quick. And these cars all on the same lap. As a matter of fact, the top 5 in GT Le Mans on the same lap. And that bodes well. And then when you think about the GT Daytona class, you've got a huge number of cars here in contention. 6 on the lead lap right now. There's the number 44. That is the Magnus Racing Audi. Rene Rast behind the wheel, a Audi Works driver, and everybody's kind of paying real close attention to what they're doing with fuel.
Yeah, their last stop was on lap 642. They've gone 12 laps since their stop. And then the 22, who's dialing them in, has been even out for even longer, lap 635.
We talked about the strategy by the 10. I think the 2 car may be ahead of them a little bit. We're now hearing that the 2 car may be pitting, and that's what they're doing, is safeguarding against the yellow. Yep. So if they pit now, can do it on one more start, they must be in their fuel window to do it. They're really even stopping the play that the 10 car had.
Playing this game very, very well. By the way, there is your 3rd place car in GT Daytona. That's the number 540 Black Swan Racing Porsche, now in the hands of Nicky Katzberg. It was a pleasure. We've seen him race a bit in the past, and he is one quick driver and doing a nice job. But let's get back up to the front in anticipation of a possible stop here by Durrani. And again, we're down to that bit. We've talked about it all race long a little bit. This game of high-speed chess, and when do you make the move? How are you reading that board? And we got trapped. If he's going to drop,
be careful. Don't throw it away by not having enough gas to get back around.
He's got everything in hand. He needs to be on the safe side of pit road speed. Looks like he is. And now talk about a dagger through the heart to Wayne Taylor. You know, they're sitting there saying, well, they're a lot faster, but at least they get better mileage than us.
Yeah.
Well, he had radio call was that he'd been on fuel or save for the last several laps trying to get to this point. So they knew how far they needed to go, and once they got there, you called it, Calvin.
He's pretty much out.
They played the piece.
The strategy plays in. JB.
Yeah, you can imagine there's a lot of pressure on this crew as they jump over the wall. There was little discussions between the crew members, definitely communicating to make sure they don't make a mistake. It's pretty much an unforced error would be unforgivable right now. The car looks pretty darn clean as they're waiting for the remainder of that fuel. They're cleaning the air vents out on either side. Standard maintenance, the car looks staggeringly in good shape at the moment. Just the oil, sweat, and blood and tears you'd expect after this long of racing as he pulls out. A really nice stop, guys. Enough time on the clock that they got to keep that pressure on, though.
And I think, Tommy, you called it. With the pace they seem to have in hand, be a little conservative on pit speed, on time in the pits and the like. Get it right.
Yeah, and I mean, the one weakness with their double stinting tires, you know, trying to not have to deal with the cold tires as often. The one thing, it used to be these cars were a lot slower on cold tires and a lot slower on warm tires, not hot tires, like on restarts. The restart part doesn't seem to be a factor anymore. They've got enough in the window. On the cold tires, on tire changes, they definitely take longer to get them going. But on the restart, they don't even seem to be that disadvantaged.
And the big difference this year, Tommy, is that 3.5 liter motor, because before, if they didn't have the track position, they didn't have the power to get by the DPs, and it's just changed their game.
But remember, the 2 got a penalty earlier on a pit stop for speeding on the way in. So, and Scott Sharp had said, no, we're all professionals. We don't need to remind each other. Well, they've got one more they've got to get through, and they've got to get through it cleanly, or the complexion of this race could change yet again. Jordan Taylor getting ready to climb aboard the 10.
That's right, Brian. Final driver change. Ricky Taylor out, Jordan Taylor in. This crew has changed these tires on this car 30 different times. This is the 30th set of Continental tires going on this car. And I was looking at some data earlier. This team has spent less time on pit lane than all other prototype teams. The next best team was 4 minutes longer. So this team just spot on all day, all night with these pit stops, fuel tires on this stop.
Well, that's something this crew is known for, is pit stop execution. So often they play it to their advantage. And as we're watching off to the left, here comes Durrani up on the banking. And where is this going to suss out? There is the Wayne Taylor car. Here comes Durrani, and on outright speed, Durrani is easily going to be able to sweep by. I would think there he goes, and we'll be back in the lead once the number 90 makes its inevitable pit stop at this point. So, thus far, everybody executing just fine in the battle for the overall here at Daytona Rising, and boy, has it risen to great battles.
I thought the competition level in 2015 was tough. I think 2016 is going to be even tougher.
With the new GT3 machinery, we should see a very competitive, very balanced racing from the entire field.
And there are going to be more competitors in that class than any other class, and that just means anything can happen.
You know, one of the closest, most competitive GT classes in the world right now.
It's really going to be difficult to tell where everyone stacks up until we get the season going.
It has lived up to the billing, no question about that here at the Rolex 24. GT Daytona has been an absolutely fabulous battle, currently led by the number 44 Magnus Racing Audi, Rene Rast. But look right behind him. That is the second place car, the 22 WeatherTech Porsche from Alex Job Racing. Shane Van Gisbergen is absolutely dialed up. And not only has this battle, as you take a look at some of the stats, some of the cars that are in this field, not only has this battle itself been great, the pace of these cars, oh, what a big moment for Van Gisbergen. Does he get away with it? Well, yeah.
It's almost like a shortcut.
Something, yeah. He went. That was straight off the outside of the kink.
Yeah,
yeah.
He was,
right. I don't think he lost much time. I'll be curious. I mean, he's going to lose a little bit getting the tires cleaned off, but I'll be interested to look at his lap time here.
Interesting to see why it happened.
Yeah.
Just pushing hard, I think. Whoa, big wiggle right at the apex.
Well, watch, he's going to come to stop, but he's carving off a big piece of real estate. Wouldn't have lost that much time.
No,
he didn't.
Shortcut the corner.
Guess it all comes down to how much that those tires got rooted with that slide across sideways across that stretch of pavement. Might have a bit of a vibration.
Knowing Ozzy's penchant for understatement, he might say.
Look at the rear wing, though.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we've been noticing that in the car.
Reverse angle. That looks a lot.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about I mean,
is that the cause of the looseness in the kink?
Well, Cal and I were speculating that they had maybe had that thing was set way back to trim it out, but it looks like it's even rotated further backward. So that's. Wow, that's
unbelievable. He did, in fact, lose 6 seconds there, 154 versus a 48 on the previous lap. So
he doesn't
clean himself off in more ways than one, maybe.
Absolutely. And what I was getting to was the pace. You know, the intra-class battle has been unbelievable, but the pace of these cars in this race has really, I think, surprised some of these GT Le Mans cars because it's made life difficult for them.
We talked about the dynamic and the rhythm of the race. It's different. We saw Tony Kanaan dive down the inside of a GTD car, and it looked late to me. And I think the reason being is that this is GTD cars should be out braking, but they've got ABS. They can plow it right down to the apex and go in there with you.
And the number 90 from the lead, Ryan Hunter-Reay brings it in, Matt.
And when the WeatherTech Porsche hit the grass, the Spirit of Daytona team, now visit Florida.com, they were excited. They thought that might be the full course caution that they needed. Right now, Ryan Hunter-Reay is going to stay in the 90. He will take it to the finish. Tires and fuel going on. Waiting on the fuel. And now they're away.
Boy, Ryan wanted to go, and that fuel was still hooked up, and a great job by that left front tire changer, also duplicating as the lollipop guy, if you will, and he said don't.
Good performance by that group, though, because it hasn't been the smoothest of months. They had a very disappointing raw test, a lot of problems over the 3-day test there. Didn't really have a chance with the dry running to really identify if they got all the bugs worked out, if they had pace in the car. So I think a podium run there, yeah, you all want to win that Rolex, but I think for them, big picture in the championship, they'll be very happy with the podium here today, I think.
Just to put it in perspective, by the way, the number 2 right now, after the pit stop by Ryan Hunter-Reay, looks to have about an 11-second lead over the number 10 of Jordan Taylor right now. So I think that number 10 car and that team needs a little help.
Well, how many times have we seen it?
It's not out of the realm, that's for sure. In comes Van Gisbergen, and as you might imagine, looking for a new set of Continental tires.
Now they're looking over that rear wing. They'll raise the engine cover, and it looks to me like it could be the mountings a little bit further in, and not necessarily because it looks like the entire supports have fallen backwards, not the wing on top of the support.
Yeah, that whole thing's loose down there, isn't it?
Yep.
Right.
Oh, God. What? Well, we were just saying, stuff can happen. I mean,
well, I mean,
of all the things to put you, back and cost you your shot, they've been grinding for almost 23 hours. And like Cooper said, not a single person has put a wheel off the track. God.
And while we're watching this, here's what we were talking about. We just got word that from a radio transmission, the number 2's Durrani radioed in a gearbox alarm, and it happened twice, and the team said just reset it, you should be okay. But talk about messing with a young guy's head late in the going here.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, you can reset them, and certainly oil pressure or oil temperature, water temperature, all of that you can reset, but the alarm went off for a reason.
Yeah.
So
I reset my alarm clock too, and it doesn't usually end up well.
Yeah.
You need to adjust it by about 7 minutes, by the way, Tommy. Your normal meeting time is.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I'm very consistently 7 minutes late.
You talked about it, Tommy. You're grinding around for the better part of 23 hours. It takes a mechanical toll, and it can happen late. We've seen it, and we'll be back just in case it does.
GT Le Mans is where the factory teams are, the manufacturers are, and they have the best drivers, the best tires, the best teams.
Every year it seems like somehow the class gets more competitive.
If you look at the lineup of the car, it's just impressive. I think it's all the best GT driver in the world.
All different brands, I think that's awesome for the spectators to see them fighting that close.
These cars are now so sophisticated and so beautiful, it's unbelievable, and nobody knows what's going to happen.
While we were in break, a lead change in GT Le Mans here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The number 3 Corvette of Antonio Garcia ducking down into the pits from the lead, and the 912 Porsche of Earl Bamber has picked up the point. And there was about 32 seconds between Garcia and Bamber. With that change now, it is Bamber leading over Ollie Gavin, and that margin is less than 8 seconds. And it's going to be interesting, Cal, to see what happens with this fuel play here.
Yeah, certainly the distinct advantage is in the hands of the 912 and the number 4. The number, I believe, is about 52 minutes. We're an hour 9 to go. If they can get to 52 minutes, that means they've stretched this fuel load a little bit further. They should be able to repeat it. Then they could do it, but it's going to be awfully tight. You're basically looking to gain a lap, which is a lot when you're running at pace.
So, and they're both in the same boat, but now that number 3 is going to have enough fuel, but they're going to probably have to make a splash. Jamie?
And problem right now that they're having, Tommy, is they're not sure how much fuel they're actually getting. The 3 crew knows that they have an issue picking up all of the fuel. They're hitting reserve much earlier than anticipated. So they're telling Antonio over the radio right now, we know we're going to have to come in and make a splash, so just push and build up as big of a gap as possible. So late race development here for the 3.
Yeah, they weren't in the window to do it on one more. Do you know what I mean? So they basically just burn fuel as much as you want. You got to come anyway. So just get the performance out of the car.
And we just saw another big moment for this number 22 WeatherTech car for Shane Van Gisbergen. And you can see that rear wing. They came into the pits while we were in break, tried to fix it. It didn't take, and you can see that's just generating a lot of lift at the back. It got away from them again, and adding to their woes. They've got to do some serious grill cleaning, Brian.
Well, absolutely. And we talked about this in the break. That's more than likely the reason why Van Gisbergen went off in the kink the first time. It had been slowly working back, but it probably collapsed right at turn-in, and instantaneously the rear downforce was gone.
It's already gone.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Yep.
And
you got
there
to
it
give
is.
the guy high marks for just flying it right in there again.
He handled it a little bit better. He's got good.
He knew it was coming.
He knew it was coming. And
that's the first one.
This is the first one.
Yeah.
Well, but think about this. Go back to Catherine Legg's career where we talked about what a great job she did here. Remember her huge crash in an IndyCar at the kink at Road America. Same kind of deal from the standpoint of a rear wing failure at just the wrong time.
We saw them fixing it during break, and they put bare bond, basically the mount, the front part of the mount underneath the rear bonnet, and then all the grass falls off. But they had bare bond and a tie strap, and the tie strap wasn't even ratcheted. It was literally just tied. And I said, that's not going to work. But
like one of my Christmas gifts. Not very good with the ribbons. He needs to get a big old tie strap from the front splitter up over the roof. And then
or how about from one side through the window, out the other window and back?
That would do it.
Yeah, I'm
not sure they're going to
I'm thinking moving with the two of you would be an experience. Everything tied on top of the car, going on vacation with the Griswolds here.
And thinking you're the tough guy with the hand out and 80 miles an hour hanging that bad boy on.
Okay, the plot.
All right,
here we go.
Yeah, indeed. Another warning on the dash in the cockpit of the number 2 car for Durrani.
They shouldn't be anywhere close to being out of fuel, so something's amiss if they're getting issues now.
So now we're getting a cascade of alarms. Every few laps, another alarm goes off, another alarm goes off.
12:02, 12:04.
And then Tommy shows up late.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 11 laps into this stint, so.
This race is cruel, I'll tell you what.
Well, by resetting the fuel maps, are they just trying to, it may not be a fuel alarm so much, it's just trying to find a different electronic map that'll work.
that he's got to get to.
But are they having problems within the engine because they're running as lean as they're running to try to go distance or make power? Maybe they need to continue to richen it up to cool things down.
While they're dealing with it, Jordan Taylor's closing back in.
We talked about Wayne Taylor's kind of looking dejected. I mean, there may be a reason for this because this car always runs well at this race. They won back in 2005 with Max and Wayne himself, but you know, they come so close in the last few years. Since lap 14 of 2012 when they had an engine failure, they've run second. Last year they were in the mix until they got that penalty, and ultimately would have finished second or third if they haven't got the penalty there. So they've run so many consecutive laps on the lead lap in contention. They just can't quite bring it home.
I want to say this isn't also the first year that they've had carried the mantle for least amount of time spent on pit road. They're just perfect.
Yeah, they're executing perfectly.
Oh, wow, man. Big bounce off the curb.
A couple other updates here in the car. One now, there's one of the reports was the team now looking at power steering issues, but we just got a report, the camera crew for our coverage, as this car is going by, they said they're hearing the occasional pop that in spots you wouldn't expect it, even with a turbo pop. So,
like I said, it's like a cascade of problems.
Yeah,
one leads to another, and what it can't do is it can't affect the young guy in the car. It can't get between his ears. He needs to continue to operate at the level at which he's been operating. We saw him on curbs just a minute ago. He needs to be cool, calm, and collected and let the engineers deal with the problem.
We're going to go on board here, or not on board, one of the cameras as it goes by, see what happens.
Heard a crackle. That could have been traction control TC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not. I haven't heard that car to compare. But one of the communications was you might be in the wrong power steering mode. So, you know. At this point,
the other thing is, if he's trying to charge and he's getting on the gas a little bit earlier, you're going to ignite that TC a little bit sooner.
And they are double stinting the tires.
Corner exit is where you would hear it as you're trying to get the power down, but
And one wouldn't think a power steering issue would create popping.
No,
so,
not so much.
Obviously, this crew is just chasing this from the pit wall right now, looking at data, listening to Durrani, and hoping that it hangs together. We'll be back to find out. The evolution of this facility has so much in common with the Rolex 24, as we just saw some legendary names and legends continue to be built here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, including Daytona Rising itself. Pretty spectacular stuff, and we are continuing to follow a little bit of drama here with the number 2. Let's get the latest from pit lane. Justin?
Yeah, well, you know when the tension is so high that no one will make eye contact with you? Well, that's what it's like here in this garage right now, because they know it could be so good, and yet it's on such a knife edge. Scott Shark did come over to me, and I asked him about the alarms, I asked him about the popping, and he's like, we just keep resetting the alarms. Yes, they're going off. Popping, he didn't want to address, really. He said, according to them, the car's still running fast. The actual telemetry is showing the car's running great, but they do keep having alarms popping up. They just reset them.
That's fairly interesting. And he just, after running in the high 141s, he just turned a 141.1. So it doesn't seem to be too drastically affecting his pace. Cal, you were mentioning in the break, maybe that's even more driven by fuel.
Yeah, I think they've got to hit a fuel number 2. So even though he's not running the mega laps that he was earlier, that's probably being compromised, his speed, by the fuel mixture they're running to get the mileage and get into their window.
Meanwhile, here is Jordan Taylor, and the margin last time by start finish was just about 7 seconds. Chris?
Well, Greg, the Wayne Taylor Racing Team is also monitoring that radio traffic and our broadcast, talking about the alarms on the 2 car. And Ricky, your brother Jordan behind the wheel right now, is that information that you pass along to him?
Jordan's pushing as hard as he can at the moment. Obviously, the 2 cars on their second stint on the tires, so I think our best shot to get him will be when they change tires here. If we do something tricky with tires to beat him out.
Guys, I think we're about probably 8 minutes away from that final pit stop.
If we do something tricky with tires.
Yeah, interesting here as we are now under 58 minutes left in this one.
I'd just do 2 tires, one side only, try and minimize the pit lane loss.
I mean, you know that they're gonna, that the 2 car will lose a little bit with new tires because it'll take that 3 laps or so to get the temperatures in. But at the same point in time, when they do come in, it's going to be a rocket ship.
Yeah,
they just got to go for track.
Compromised.
They have to go for track position. I mean, for everything else out of the window, you know what I mean? They've got to somehow get in front. They're not going to pass the 2 on speed.
Right.
They've got to get in front of them somehow.
Now, this is the car that for a long time has been the front runner in GT Daytona. That Audi from Magnus. However, we have had one of the Lamborghinis from Conrad Motorsports in the hands of Fabio Babini is shown now as the leader. That would be the number 28 car. We'll keep an eye on that, but now he ducks into the pit, so it should now cycle just a little bit here. So we'll keep that up to date. And by the way, it is still in GT Le Mans. Earl Bamber in the 912 Porsche by about 7 seconds over the number 4 of Ollie Gavin in the Corvette. And Cal, you said they needed, you thought, to get to about 52 minutes. We're about 4.5 minutes away from that.
Yeah, and this is a crucial time for them. They'll be doing everything they can. We've now spoken to both those cars and their pit crews, and they said it's really, really mega tight.
And there is that number 28 machine in pit lane, and the stop ends. Jamie, looked routine?
Yeah, no, he was routine. They came, it was perfect stop. They did get jammed up behind the 37. Thankfully, he pulled out right in front of them. He had a shorter stop. Yeah, I mean, great for Conrad. We haven't seen him here for so long, and I mean, they were big players in the last 2 decades in racing over here. So it's great to see Conrad here with his guys, and that Lamborghini, it is super fast. And I know we talked about it, but they might as well enjoy this little honeymoon of pace, because it won't be there by the time they get to Sebring.
I think you're probably right. Spot on with that. Franz Conrad, of course, a former class winner of this legendary event. We're going to step away for just a moment here. We will be right back. 55.5 minutes remaining. When it's an event of this level of prestige importance, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the stress level as we enter this last hour for those still in contention is absolutely off the charts, from the crews, certainly even the drivers, although they are focused. And as you guys well know, I'm sure, when you're in a multi-driver team and in a crew team, it's tougher to be at the wall and just watch. At least in the car, you're focused on getting the job done. That's where Durrani runs right now. The team is nervous, and we also heard about the strategy that the number 10 team is looking at as well.
Well, everyone's kind of on the edge. They're tired. They're probably not sure of their math. We see the 912 and the 4 trying to stretch their mileage to try to somehow beat the 3 that's been in control. The 912 has headed for pit road.
Look at the clock. We said they had to do 52 and get to 52, and that stretched it a lap further than we're seeing all race long. They're doing the job.
Matt?
A great job by Earl Bamber. Going to work, the team very deliberate in their moves around the car, smooth stop. They've got to make sure no fuel spillage, make sure they do a nice solid stop. All 3 drivers on this team has never won here at the Rolex 24. Team manager Morgan Brady told me when I asked him how close were you to make it on one more stop, he said very, very, very close. Cal, I think they've reached that time limit you were talking about.
Yeah, I think if they can just repeat the same stint here, they're going to be good. They're going to be on fumes, and we see the checkered flag here this afternoon, and the big question mark is the 4 car as well. Ollie Gavin's really done a mega job here on this stint. His fuel mileage is phenomenal. He's gone a lap further. This is incredible.
Now, does that give him some more fuel to attack the Porsche?
Absolutely. He doesn't have to manage it as much by squeaking a little bit more out. There was kind of a mandated number that they were looking for from this class of 28 laps per stint. Makowiecki just went 30.
Yeah, he went 30.
And Calvin, they told Earl Bamber when he was leaving pit road, you need to save a little bit more fuel. Repeat, you need to save a little bit more fuel on this stint than you did on the previous. They're very close.
Yes, my mistake there, Matt. Obviously, Bamber now behind the wheel of the 912. I think if they do the same thing, I mean, by our calculations, Matt has a similar length stint, so we'll have to wait and see. But he certainly did a mega job there, and Gavin even more amazing.
And I know these guys are good, but what'll also matter is where the overall leader is relative to them. They could do a lot less or a lot more.
That's a really great point.
If they can actually gain that, I can't imagine they could, but that will play a factor.
And what you're saying is, Tommy, basically, if they cross the stripe just before the overall leader, they've got to go another minute 45. Yes. So that's what they're talking about in terms of saving a bit more.
Jamie?
And Oliver Gavin hit his marks perfectly, freeing the car into pit lane. They told him, leave the car running. You are going to stay behind the wheel. 4 new Michelin tires and a full tank of fuel on board. He had not hit the reserve tank yet, though. They were telling him during this entire stint, Ollie, we need you to save fuel. We're going to stretch this. We're going to hope it stays green. We want you to stay out. So he's going to take this car to the checkered flag. I asked him, can you make it with just one more stop? No one would give me a definitive answer, but they wouldn't do so with a giant smile on their faces. Clean stop for the 4 crew.
I think the answer has been given with that stop. The other thing, if he hadn't hit reserve, that's less fuel they have to put in. And they can fill it up, and he can turn it full rich, and he can go.
I think the 4 car is gold, and the 3 car will assume the lead, of course, but he's going to need a good splash of fuel, plus the 30 seconds driving down pit lane.
And the 4 car beat the 912 out, and he's hung up. The Porsche is behind that prototype challenge machine. Oh, it's going to be very close by the time they get down into the hairpin.
Bamber's
Here comes Bamber.
Bamber's got to go for it right now. He's got to attack. He's got to attack.
Hot tires versus cold.
Yep.
Decisive moment.
He's got to go. He's just got to maintain the track position, but still hit his fuel number.
Well, and that's the problem now, isn't it? Because Gavin can let it all out.
And that's his target. That's Gavin's target right in front of him. He can now start his race the rest of the way based on that number 1-2 machine right in front of him. Garcia's going to need to hit pit lane again.
And the impressive thing here, guys, was when Bamber pitted, that 4 car was about 8 seconds behind. So you think about that whole sequence and where they came out that close, that number 4 Corvette team and that crew doing a superb job, not only of strategy, but execution in pit lane.
Like they always do.
Yeah, well, true.
Now, they've got it covered both ways, Corvette does, because if it looks like we think these cars are going to make it, but if they don't, they've got the 3 cars, so they're covered both ways.
We're coming in for a splash. When? Now. Pit now.
Now that was from the number 44.
Next time.
Yeah, he missed it. They made that and they gave him the call, and you could hear him say when, and they went now. And at that point, he could not get down into pit lane. So a little miscommunication there, but Rene Rast still able to keep the car alive at this point. I would suspect we'll see him ducking down into pit lane this time, because we heard right at the end of that transmission, next lap.
Well, anyone now who pits in GTD or GTLM should be good to go to the finish.
See what they've concluded. That car didn't stop too many laps ago. They've concluded we definitely cannot make it.
Right.
So let's do the splash now and hope for a yellow.
Yeah. By splash, they're meaning top him up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he only needs a splash to do that.
To do that, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, just
maybe that was what confused him. It was like,
that
splash, it was just him. What are you talking about?
That's a good point.
Maybe he did hear the communication, but decided too confusing. It doesn't make sense to him.
That makes sense. By the way, speaking of communication, Jordan Taylor just radioing to the crew. They've got a vibration.
Well, if it's a tire, they're pretty close to their fuel window as well.
Let's listen to the radio.
The car running okay? Do you need to pit?
Doesn't feel good. Got a bit of vibration. It's still pulling, but I smell something.
Smells something also.
Well, when he said it's still pulling, then what he's alluding to is the vibration seems to be in the drivetrain.
Right.
It's not something in a tire being out of balance.
Right.
Well, and the scariest part was not good.
Yeah.
So it's amazing at this point you are so in tune to every little part of the car. Anything that changes alerts you.
So it continues to get interesting. Tommy, special moment for you here, huh?
Yeah, this is the lengths people go to watch these races. That's the way to go. I also got a note from a guy that's on a salvage boat streaming the race.
Fans are everywhere. This event is just that important.
Welcome back to the pit lane here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and you know what? The clock is counting down. But here in the Lamborghini pits, I'm with Maurizio Reggiani, who is Director of Research and Development. Maurizio, a lot of research, but this is a lot of on-track development. You must be very proud.
Yeah, it's clear. When we develop our car, we take in consideration from the beginning the fact that we want to race, and Super Trofeo and GT3 are really parts of the development of a basic Huracan that you can see on the street.
Well, you're learning a lot of lessons here. Everybody is watching, and you are very fast. Okay, guys, back to you.
No question, that car right there from Conrad, the number 28, third in GT Daytona in their debut race in the GT Daytona category. Absolutely superb run, and all of them have been very, very fast. Had some issues here and again, but good solid runs. The number 90 completing a stop at the number 10. Check that, the number 2 is coming in and the 10 following him in. And both of these cars have been reporting potential little issues here. Durrani will hit his marks first. What we're wondering is whether we'll see a driver change in the number 10 car. We will.
Looks like it.
And Greg, this plan has changed. We thought Jordan Taylor was going to take this car to the finish line, but just in the last few minutes, he radioed in saying that he isn't feeling that well. He wanted to get out, so they told Max Angelelli, you need to get back in, but they're also hearing a vibration with this car. I checked in with Wayne Taylor to see if there was a tire vibration or a driveline vibration, and they just don't know. So tires on the stop, fuel, Max Angelelli, I don't know.
This is going to be close. And still Durrani able to beat him open. The number 98 from second in GT Daytona, Richie Stanaway in the Aston Martin Racing Vantage. That looked like he just had an issue over in the bus stop. Looks like he may have gotten away with one here.
Yeah, everybody giving it their all right now.
That was
Richie
the time.
Stanaway was chasing Rene Rast, but one car, the 540 Black Swan car, might be in the Catsburg seat because they've made their splash early, and if you get a yellow between now and Rast, Babini, and Stanaway hit the pits, they'll cycle to the front.
Everyone's got to respond. They have to respond. Otherwise, you're just going to get caught out. You're rolling the dice by not coming in after one of the leaders pits and you're inside your fuel window.
Well, and now Max Angelelli needs to do what he does best, and that is attack. He's got to start to put pressure on the two. If they've got some problems, he needs to try to push that machine to the point that it breaks. It seems to be the only hope right now. They don't really have that much of the pace for the two.
Remember, the other point is within the last 30 minutes of the race, it's a different caution procedure. Pit lane stays closed as well, so you really got to be careful. They have to pit before 30 minutes to go.
And you know, Tommy, you were talking about the 540. Of all the cars out there, it's the cleanest, and it has consistently run to the program here, and those drivers to a person have stayed out of trouble and have planned this strategy for this moment. There's no question.
Yeah, and now we're watching the battle at GTLM. Ollie Gavin got right up on the back of that Porsche for a little while, but now he's stretched it back out a little bit.
And right now, this is for second and third, but it will eventually be for first because Antonio Garcia in the number 3 is going to have to make a stop. We anticipate it possibly being even as soon as the next lap. So this is really the battle for the lead in GT Le Mans with 38.5 minutes remaining. And they're saying this lap now for the 3. Garcia going to come in and see what happens.
Well, this is going to be a battle royale. Remember, Earl Bamber not only has to keep that Corvette behind him, he's still got to hit that fuel number. That was the 3 radio communication telling Antonio he has to hit pit. Oh, Bamber's really wide there, really deep.
Looks like he locked it up, Cal.
He did. And Ollie Gavin's right there. He's going to try and pounce here, I think. Bamber's going to defend vigorously. He knows this is for the Rolex.
And not only is this for the Rolex, but think about the season for the last couple of years that Tommy Milner and Ollie Gavin have had stateside. They had the win at Le Mans last year. They need to win some races. There's not a better one to win over on this side of the pond than the Rolex 24.
That's a good point. They watched last year their teammates in the other car win this in Sebring and go on to a near championship run as well.
And it's not just been getting results. They haven't had performance, period.
Yeah, true. That's
so they've had the speed today, and that's what they were looking for.
And here comes the number 3, Garcia, onto the limiter in pit lane as we watch that battle. And boy, I'll tell you, Gavin there.
He had a pretty good gap.
Garcia had built that gap to 51 seconds. This is going to be close. You lose about 30 seconds down pit lane. Garcia had the hammer down. He's going to have fresh tires. He's got to get him up to temp.
Jamie?
Well, in talking with Dan Beeks, you know, the radio chatter is, are we going to take tires? Are we not going to take tires? The team decided it's the only chance that they have. By their calculations, should this stop go perfectly, they're just going to be within 5 seconds of track time. With all 3 of those cars, he said we're going to have those fresh Michelins. Very clean stop for Antonio Garcia.
It was, and that is what that team does. This is going to be fascinating to see. Look in the background. Here they come into the tri-oval. Very close.
Really close. I think he's going to do it. He's
at the line.
I think they're going to get by him, I think. I think they're going to get by him, but Garcia's going to have fresh tires. They're not going to be up to 10.
There they go. There they go.
Go get him.
I think you hit it, Cal. Fresh tires. Once they come up to temp, the war in GT Le Mans is on. Porsche, Corvette, and Corvette. It doesn't get any better than this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody, as we are heading toward the final half hour at the 2016 Rolex 24 at Daytona. And we have a new leader in GT Le Mans. It is the number 4 Corvette, and it came with a little bit of contact, guys.
Little bump and run right here from Ollie Gavin. Little Dale Earnhardt Sr. rattling his cage there.
That was more than a rattle.
Neil Bamber got in the radio and said, "What was that?" And the team responded, "This is for the win." That's what that was all about. Go get him.
And watch this side by side. Listen to the radio.
The race is you on Gavin. This is the race. You and the guy ahead of you.
Well, Earl, cinch him up. Let's go, because that's what it's all about. And the interesting thing here is we talked about a couple of things. Fresher tires late at Daytona being the difference. How often have we heard that in everything that races here? And now a little bump and run. Boy.
Well, and what did you just tell Earl Bamber?
Yeah.
You just told him he can go return the favor, and if he gets close enough, don't think that he won't.
Absolutely. And
he
up
might
front,
have given
by the
up
way,
his chance. He got close that time and didn't do it.
That's a good point. Up front, the margin is up to about 14 seconds, the number 2 over the number 10. And Chris, Jordan Taylor out of the car. How's he doing?
That's right, Greg. We saw Jordan hop out on that last pit stop. And Jordan, we thought you were going to take the 10 car to the end there, but we were listening to your radio communication. We heard you talk about a vibration and then also some gases inside the car. What's going on with the 10 car right now?
Yeah, we think there's something going on with the exhaust system, so it was letting a lot of fumes in the car and kind of burning my eyes and stuff. So we figured, put Max in. I was already kind of feeling the effects from it, so I get a fresh driver in to go to the end. He's only got to be in there for 40 minutes. And he's known to kind of put himself at risk at the end of a race, so he's a guy to have in the car.
Was that also the vibration, do you think?
Yeah, well, it's changed the engine note, it's changed the feel of the car, so I don't think it's affected the performance, it's just a feel thing, and obviously the gas is in the car, so 30 minutes to go, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so that vibration not slowing Max Angelelli down.
No, the man is a closer, no question, and we just understood that they've also suggested that he turn off his helmet blower so he's not cycling that up into the helmet, just doing everything they can to get him to the end. And if anybody's up for it, Max Angelelli is. But the problem is, it's still the pace of that number 2 Tequila Patron ESM Ligier Honda up front.
With that GTLM battle, we talk about BOP, balance of performance. We heard the word sandbagging by some of the competitors today. I think right now you're going to see the true BOP in that class, because it's game on for the win. You're not going to hold back and risk, losing this race today.
By the way, in GT Daytona, just to update you, Ras still leads. Fabio Babini in the 28 Conrad Lamborghini second, but 32 seconds back at this stage. But in GT Le Mans, those top 3, boy, it doesn't get any closer than that right now. Some very, very intense racing at similar lap times as well. But up front, Ollie Gavin is starting to stretch that margin out. Doesn't look like Bamber's got an answer.
No, and I'm surprised that Garcia is not making more of an inroad on him. He's now 3.5 seconds behind. And that blows out now to 4.1 again.
The way he'd built that gap was by running within a few thousandths of the fast race lap. Got really close to Ryan Briscoe's time from earlier, and but this new set of tires, for whatever reason, it's traffic or what have you, he's not been able to eat into that.
On board now with Garcia, stuck in some traffic behind one of the, I think that's the Action Express prototype, number 5, as well as some other cars here. And this is not going to be what he needs right now, trying to run down Bamber at this stage. Bamber's last lap was a 146.6, and obviously I think that was some traffic induced. But boy, he lost a lot of time, not just to Gavin, but to Garcia behind him.
Yeah, he's running down the 912, but he's not running down Ollie Gavin, and that's what he cares about the most.
Remember, Gavin stretched his mileage a little bit further, so he's got more fuel to burn as well, and he has track position. So Bamber's really in a difficult spot here.
How ironic is it that what set this up was a mistake by Marcel Fessler, and quick thinking on the part of the 4 guys to say, okay, let's give up a little bit more track position, get a little more fuel in the car, and figure that out in quick order, that they could switch strategies and it might turn out okay, and it's looking pretty good.
It's always nice when you can turn a positive or a negative into a positive, and boy, did they.
Well, sometimes when you're on the back foot, you can play that game because you've got nothing to lose. I remember back in 2011 when Chip Ganassi Racing won, Joey Hand hit some pit equipment and then put down a mega stint, and suddenly what you had a situation where the 02 car was leading, the 10 car was a lap down, there was a yellow. They couldn't afford to pit Dixon from the lead, so to put the 10 car back on the lead lap. Joey came in, stuck Pruitt in the car. They're full of fuel. They eliminated a pit stop at the end of the race. So by being behind, it enabled them to play the strategy and win the race.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 could have stopped then too, but that was the risky move for them at that point.
Yeah.
So Rene Rast trying to bring it home for Magnus.
I'll tell you what, he's trying to bring it home, but they may have some fuel issues here. He just turned a 153.7, Babini a 147.7, and they just trimmed, well, you could do the math there, almost 6 seconds out of that 32-second lead.
And as we said, if we get a yellow now, the 540 is going to be leading.
All right, well, it might be getting awfully interesting here in GT Daytona as well. Up front and overall, Durrani continues to stretch that margin. We'll be right back. The battle for second is intense here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The opening round of the 2016 WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. There's Earl Bamber, and he is being hounded now by the number 3 of a flying Antonio Garcia, excuse me. And Jamie, you just told us that there was a bit of a concern and a warning to Antonio.
Yeah, there was. The team just told him, don't rough up that Porsche at all. Gavin already did that, and we don't want any retaliation at the end of this race. So they did warn him about getting physical out there.
And he comes through as clean as you can imagine. Great move there by Garcia. It is Corvette, and Porsche now. How quickly things can change.
Now, when you said he's flying, he is flying.
Yeah.
44 flat the lap before.
As we said, this is the real BOP right now. You're going to see how fast these GTLM cars can go.
And Garcia has fuel to burn.
Exactly, and that's the fastest lap that car certainly has turned.
It's the fastest GTLM lap of the day.
Yeah, oh boy.
And so now it's 3.1 seconds. Took him a little bit, he lost a little to get around Bamber, but there's a lot of time left. Now,
how do you control Garcia? He wants to win. He wants to wring the neck of that Corvette. But the team are thinking, we're sitting 1-2. We show too much pace.
I think Garcia is going to all of a sudden not understand English if they tell him to hold the position.
Well, exactly. What do you do when you catch him? You know, I mean, for years and years in the Corvette camp, it was if they make a mistake, you can go by, but otherwise you'll run nose to tail. But once again, radio communication around here can sometimes get broken up by the airport next door. So maybe, maybe there's some static and
local news affiliates.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what it was. I was suddenly hearing weather. I don't know.
Garcia has been just the breakout star on this team. He's just so soft-spoken and quiet. But you had Rocky do a lot of work to get him to this point. They put him in, and now he's going to chase Gavin. An update on GTD, I was saying if we get a yellow, those guys are exposed, but now we're inside the 30-minute deal where they do not open the pits under yellow. So, but Getzberg has been doing good work, and he's close enough when those other guys stop, which we figure they have to. He is in the Getzberg seat, as I said.
And by the way,
go ahead,
I'm sorry, the radio, they just told Rast, you're good, go for it now. You don't have to conserve, apparently. And but they said Fabio Babini is absolutely right now in fuel conservation mode.
Well, I'm surprised. I mean, looking at the numbers, he's got 20 laps on the board. He's got another 20 minutes to go. That would be a huge stint for him. Way over 30 laps to get to the finish of this race. That's further than they've been all race long. So.
And Babini has one less lap of fuel in his car, one more, I should say, than the 44. But he's definitely still hurting on fuel.
Well, we'll have to watch what the times are here. Asked that one lap, as I said, he was up in the high 50s, and now he just turned one at a 151. Still seconds slower. All right, that as a clarification, they were asking Rene to hit a 150 lap even, and his response a 149.6. That's pretty close.
Yeah, but they're gonna that 4/10 might be the difference. So they want him to hit that number. Now, I mean, I'm not sure. I was about to say when we were talking to Cooper McNeil, looking at his Instagram, I want to be him, but I'm not sure there's anything better than being a guy named Fabio Babini that races a Lamborghini at the Rolex 24. Is that a great line?
That just sounds right. That's all you can say about it here. There's the number 25.
You could use it, but I think you're a little pale for that.
Yeah. He's pretty fair for an Italian. He's got blonde hair. He has hair, but.
There is Durrani now. That margin up front up to about 18 seconds over the 10 of Max Angelelli. And they're both in the 41s. The problem for Max is he's high 41, and Durrani is consistently right in that low to mid 141 range. And they've actually mentioned, Brian, with a radio communication with some of the issues there, asking him, it was a 141.5 or so thereabouts they want Durrani to hit, right?
Well, absolutely, but they want him to hit it for a reason.
Yeah.
And that is all these alarms that are going off and the temps. We still have 19 minutes to go.
The latest communication was around temperatures. Yes.
And, I mean, the fact of the matter is we've seen this race go up in smoke literally before. We saw it last year with the 54 car. It can be traffic. It can be a mechanical issue on yours. This is far from over.
We got a car limping.
Oh, left rear cut. That's the 51 Spirit of Race Ferrari from the GT Daytona category.
As we said before, if there is a yellow now, the pit lane would be closed. But then the question is, does that give them enough fuel, save those leaders if they are in fuel problems, to then get to the checkered flag without needing to come down pit lane for a splash?
I don't think we're going to get a yellow here. He's through the bus stop.
Yeah. And by the way, the margin, the 4 Corvette of Gavin to the 3 Corvette of Garcia, 1.8.
He's coming.
He sure
and
is.
44-1. I mean, just hammered down for Antonio Garcia.
And while Garcia may have a radio problem and not be able to hear, I guarantee you Gavin can communicate with his crew saying, you are going to leave him behind me, are you not?
And getting back to the GTD battle,
yep.
The leader, Rene Rast, just ran a 151.6. Katzberg ran a 148 flat, 3.5 seconds out of that lead.
And Richie Stanaway, a 149.4, who's only 11 seconds out of the lead. So that's getting interesting as well. So a couple of the classes, it is fierce here coming to the finish. With less than 15 minutes to go at the Rolex 24 at Daytona and GT Le Mans, the battle for the win is all Velocity Yellow and Chevrolet Corvette. Welcome back to Daytona and the World Center of Racing. And Tommy, the question is, are they going to race?
Well, during break, we got the answer to that. Both drivers were told you are allowed to race, which is a bit of a surprise to me. But, I mean, the laps at Garcia, it's at 44-1, 44-2, 44-1, right at fast race lap. Incredible. Now, he's got to get by cleanly because that would be an absolute disaster. If they're allowed to race and it ends poorly, that'll be the last time.
Yeah, for sure. But how badly does this 4-car want to win? They have been on a drought. Mosport 2013 was their last victory on U.S. soil.
Well, what were they told? Not too much risk. Define that. What's your opinion of too much risk? So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But remember last year, Greg, teammates had a coming together and someone else won.
Exactly. It was a big moment. Obviously the Porsches came together. Big problems here. Nice job there, by the way. The number 11. That has been a car that has been awfully quick. And he just moved over the way. That's Townsend Bell. Class act, good driver, knew the game here and let these two guys through to be able to battle after it here. And now they've got a little bit of clear track.
Yeah, it was Corvette that was the beneficiary last year. The Porsche's getting together. We've got a Porsche sitting third. What happens if the two yellow vets get together?
This is just a little later in the game.
Yeah, a little later in the game, yeah.
Just up the road is, I think, the 911 Porsche.
I think I just put Mosport in the U.S. by the way.
I was just going to say, I was going to give you a lesson. You were co-opting Scotland for England earlier. So.
Well, and earlier we heard the suggestion to put Ron Fellows on Mount Rushmore. So,
well, there was that one, but that comes from Justin. So
I think if Trump becomes president, he's going to negotiate to buy both Canada and Mexico. So that could happen yet. Light up Twitter for me. Roast me on that one, folks.
Oh boy, let's talk about roasting here. This is getting as hot as it possibly can. He sure did.
Yeah.
And the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
Guessing he's going to have to go around the long way around, though.
As you said, what's low risk?
Yeah.
Here he comes.
Oh, good stuff.
Ollie's probably saying, are you kidding me? You're going to let us race?
And Ollie not going to let him go. And you can't go beneath that apron line. So no option there for Garcia but to go high. But now sold him a little dummy, tried to get down underneath. Gavin having none of that.
Can't get it stopped.
He's in there, he's going to wash out a little bit there. Nice job by Ollie Gavin there controlling the situation. Traffic, though, is the factor, how he controls the traffic.
Fuel and tires. Garcia has fuel to burn, and he's got fresher tires.
That's, I think, going to be the story here. But we've seen Ollie Gavin work some magic in the past as well. But boy, Antonio, Tommy, you were talking about it. he is something very, very special. And a couple of years ago, a drive he put on to hang on to the lead at Circuit of the Americas, I asked Doug Feehan, I said, so was that not one of the most amazing drives? And Feehan looked at me and said, the guy's mega, and this is going to be fun.
Now, I'll check to find out if they did a timed fill on the 3 car, because if they put just enough fuel in to they did. So he's working with about a 30-pound weight advantage because he's that much lighter than Ollie Gavin.
They certainly didn't top him off. They'd have put enough in because the time it takes to put the 4 tires on would have been more than enough fuel that they needed to get into the checkered flag.
By the way, they just told the 44, we need you to start saving more fuel. And Babini has closed it up.
Look at the drop.
Very close.
Look at that. Garcia. Garcia could see that prototype coming. He thought, if I can get underneath him, and if he opens the door, I can go with him. Really savvy driving by Garcia there. Didn't quite come off, but I love it.
Oh, he gets
He gets a tremendous run, Brian.
And shuts the bottom lane off.
This is just fantastic. 2 of the absolute best in the world. And 2 of the most amazing pieces of equipment you can imagine right now. And as I mentioned, that GT Daytona lead, Rast now 1.4 seconds clear of Babini in the Huracan. And now Garcia swings high. And let's see if he can make it work from the outside here. Gavin going to go in very, very deep. You know, traffic! And it looked for a minute like a pick may have been placed there. We'll see what happens here. Still more traffic to deal with. No place to go. And that worked to Gavin's advantage this time.
It's always harder to be the first car. You got to commit sooner than the other guy.
The other key is some of the faster traffic coming through. If they dive down the inside of Gavin, that can open up the door for Garcia as well. It's just not Gavin dealing with the slower traffic in front of him.
Boy, this is going to be fun. By the way, we just heard that the Magnus team radioed Rast and said, you've got to let the 28 go by. We don't have fuel to race them. Let them go.
JB Justin Bell reported that the 28 car believed they were not good on fuel. So the car that's putting the pressure on for the GTD lead believes they are not good on fuel. As we see them make the move.
And there he goes. Babini getting the run, and Rast driving to that fuel number had nothing for him. And a Lamborghini Huracan, the first time running in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in GT3, leading with under 10 minutes to go.
Or is that a brilliant move by Magnus to say, go right ahead. We don't think you've got the fuel either. Go ahead, run the pace and run out.
We knew Babini, that was a bit tight for the Conrad crew as well. You're absolutely right.
They pitted 1 lap later, Greg, than the 44 car. But again, they don't know what fuel mileage exactly the Lamborghini can achieve, being in the Audi camp, of course.
Well, as fast as it goes.
Oh, and a run here.
He's got a good run this time.
He almost snuck under him.
Yeah, he did.
This is a little bit like restrictor plate racing.
And Gavin going to be protecting that inside big time. Oh, but now Gavin, he floats out, and for just an instant, I thought Garcia might just duck down underneath. But again, I think that's that risk thing that they're talking about. And we got confirmation, you guys were spot on, Brian, that that is exactly what the 44 team was thinking. They aren't confident at all that the 28's got the fuel.
Jim Campbell, Mark Royce, everybody at GM, Pratt and Miller are incredibly proud and incredibly nervous.
And incredibly brave.
It's not going to take much. Bamba's still there. He still sits 6 seconds behind. You can see him in the frame there.
Yeah, any kind of incident here.
Well, that's something that could change the program if he can get up there and start pressuring the 3.
7.5 minutes to go. Up onto the banking, the Turner BMW up front. Who will that benefit? Obviously, Gavin flashing the lights.
Yeah, look at this. Garcia's got another run. He's really pulling that draft from about 5 car lengths back, it looks like.
And Gavin underneath. Both of them diving down underneath. But boy, this is as close as Garcia's been coming out of the bus stop, guys. Here he comes. What a run.
I think he's going to need traffic.
I think so, too. And the longer we go, the more the advantage of the tires is going to go away because he's just pounding on those Michelins right now.
Oh, he's looking at the inside. Ollie doesn't give him a lane. You can't pass underneath that yellow stripe.
Oh, and again he looks.
Oh, he's opening the door. Be careful, Ollie. He's going to open it.
Well, what Ollie's doing is he's actually giving himself the angle so he can be flatter under braking, have the car a little bit flatter. He's leaving it open. It's a risk.
By the way, an update from the pits on the 28 Lamborghini of Babini. They said we're running on air, not even fumes. They are that tight right now.
And behind those guys, Babini leads from Ras, but now Stanaway sits 11 seconds back of those two, and Katzberg putting the pressure on for the final spot on the podium, which could be more if these guys run into fuel issues.
Through the kink for the two Corvettes into the West Horseshoe, feeding the throttle up into turn 6. Crucial corner this, leads up onto the banking. It's all about the drive off of this one, and looked like Ollie got a pretty good run there, guys.
Good run that time. Think about this, 23 hours, 54 minutes down, and this is what we've got at the end. Unbelievable.
And whatever happens here for the 4 squad, they want that win desperately, but it is so cool to see them back on the pace once again.
Well, and this is not set up artificially by a yellow.
No.
You know,
this is racing.
This is racing.
By the way, just to let everybody watching know, not missing anything in prototype, it's still Durrani in the number 2, almost 20 seconds clear now of Angelelli, and in prototype challenge, it is still the 85. Kenton Cook put behind the wheel of that JDC Miller Motorsports machine and leading by a handful of laps still. So that's it. But look at the battle in GT Daytona as Ras now able to come back on the 28, and we know that 28 is struggling mightily.
And Stanaway has hit the pits. The car was just in front of Katzberg. So if these guys run out, Stanaway ran out. He stopped on the same lap as the Magnus Audi.
Boy, I'm sorry, guys. I just, again, you saw the number 4 of Gavin just float up a little bit. And for a moment, Garcia looked to go underneath. A little wiggle that time from the back of the number 4. Does Garcia now have enough to do something down into the hairpin? You know that Gavin is going to protect. Boy, Antonio had a great run. Just nowhere, nothing he could do.
Well, for Rene Rast, he's had success here, but he did lose a real heartbreaker here on fuel strategy. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And so he's been in this position before in the GTD battle. We're looking on the left side of the screen.
Look at Garcia.
Boy, he's trying to just get enough along the outside to be able to.
He's pretty close to the point where Gavin's going to have to give him room.
I think that's his entire plan, wasn't it, to get up there and have
He got a good run.
Shallow that exit up. Here we go. This time, you're right, Brian. Garcia much closer on the run out.
Ollie's got to go low. He's got to go low.
He's got to stay left.
Yep.
And that's gonna shallow up the run into the bus stop.
Gavin protects. Ooh, Garcia now pops to the outside, but Gavin's got that.
Man.
It's so hard to hit your marks when you're approaching these corners from the other side of the road. It's so easy to get it wrong. You lose all your reference points.
Yep. Car brakes a little bit differently if you're going on diagonal, a little bit different weights. I mean, he's pushing the limits of being reactive, but I think Bo Barfield's going to let Doug Feehan handle that.
He says, I don't need to officiate this one.
And
28 is out.
Garcia. Oh, 28 out of fuel. And Rast has been told to coast as much as he can as well.
Look at this.
Garcia now along the outside. And that run allows him to take it down.
Can he stop it? No.
Oh, he's going to get inside. He's going to get him. Gavin gets it back.
Through.
Awesome stuff.
Fantastic.
Oh. E for effort.
Now, what can Garcia do with the 90, and can he follow him through, as you guys said, because right behind him.
Let 90 be the fullback.
I'll tell you what, Ollie Gavin knows how that one worked out the last time. I'm sure he's not going to.
Yeah, if there was any doubt as to how serious Antonio Garcia was going to be, there's no doubt anymore.
But white flag for our overall leader next time by.
The question mark is he going to get in front of these two Corvettes before he takes the checkered flag? Otherwise, they're going to have to do another lap, which will be great for us, not good for Ollie Gavin.
Is the Audi slow? No. Now, is Rene Rast? Yes, he's slow
as well. So this could fall into the Katzberg seat. Sorry, I had to borrow it from you there, Tommy.
Twice, Rene Rast a lap from victory.
And suddenly Garcia, he's the one that got hung up, Brian, behind that number 90 Corvette, DP. And it cost him a little bit here.
Cost him a ton.
Thanks, fellow Corvette.
The overall leader is just going down towards the bus stop chicane. I'm not sure. There he is.
He's not going to get him.
No.
There's Pippo. So I think those Corvettes are going to have to do two more laps.
Good for us, as you said, no question about it. But as Pippo Durrani in the number 2 Tequila Patron ESN Ligier Honda comes up onto the banking, we are anticipating seeing the white flag fly. 1 lap to go in the 2016 Rolex 24 at Daytona. 20 seconds to the good. This team and this young man, what an amazing star I think we are seeing in the early part of a rocketing career as he feeds it down into the chicane and working his way now through the infield. Fabulous stuff. And again, that means we're going to see the rest of that lap and another one for the Corvettes. And Rast, yeah, he is just crawling right now. Katzberg has already picked up second.
So it's not over yet for the 44. He's still in the lead. He's slowed way down. It's 8 seconds at the line, but he's gone slow since.
They're trying to manage this. And I think the bad news is he's going to have to do another lap and a half.
That's a long haul.
Well, it's a long haul, no question about it. Meanwhile, Durrani.
I think Tequila Patron ESM has found a star.
You think so? I think absolutely. And the interesting thing, we've been talking about the history here. Obviously, Scott Pruitt not going to be able to break that tie with Hurley Haywood as we now go back to these 2 Corvettes. But we might see the first win overall by a Honda here as the Corvettes come by down the front straight. That in itself would certainly be some history. And maybe, Brian, a changing of the guard just a little bit. This is the last year of the DP. Everybody, of course, some hoping they get this win one more time. But it's this type of car that will be the future, starting with the new DPI format.
Absolutely. As we move to 2017, there'll be a new car. It was the last chance, as you said, for a Daytona prototype to take the victory. Looks like that will not happen.
The plot is thickened even more in GTD because the Viper, driven by Damian Faulkner, is battling. Here's Checker.
Here's the Checker. Honda wins overall at Daytona for the first time. And Scott Sharp and his Tequila Patron ESM team, Ed Brown, Johannes van Overbeek, and Pippo Durrani, folks, remember that name. You're going to be hearing a lot about him. The Corvettes heading into the kink right now as we watch Rast trying to milk it to bring it home here in front of Nick Katzberg.
No pressure from behind, bud.
But it is the Corvettes as well now into the West Horseshoe as they are working their way toward turn 6.
That's Katzberg's pulled away from Faulkner.
Yep. There is the number 93. That, of course, is the car that ended up winning here last year and went on to win the Tequila Patron North American Endurance Cup. They're in a good position as well. There is the 44 trying to make his way now out of that bus stop. And if he can hang on, it's possible. They might have done this here. He had a 6.6 second margin at the line. Boy, he is just absolutely easy. The 85 has won in prototype challenge, by the way. JDC Miller Motorsports, an incredible job. And in GT Daytona, Magnus brings it home in the Audi, winning here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And out of the banking, here we go. This is GT Le Mans at its finest. These 2 Corvettes side by side at the line. It is Gavin and Corvette number 4 winning at Daytona by what, 3-4 feet over the team car of Antonio Garcia. 34 one-thousandths of a second as Corvette goes 1-2 here at Daytona. Look at that margin of victory. Phenomenal.
You may expect that in the Daytona 500,
exactly.
But after 24 hours, and you saw Dan Binks there with a smile on his face, not because he finished second, but because they raced all the way to the checkered flag.
That was fantastic. The buzz was about the 4 GT and whether GM could beat them. What a statement, a 1-2 finish side by side across the line.
And there's Max Angelelli, door open on that car, and I wonder if that's fumes related.
When they put him in, I said they put a fresh canary in the coal mine, and you know Max was not going to quit.
Yeah, Unbelievable here. By the way, Bamber in the Porsche third. Alessandro Pierguidi brings the Ferrari home in fourth, and the 25 BMW in its debut finishes fifth in the hands of Augusto Farfus. But there are your 4 class winners, and we're going to come back for the celebrations here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Daytona rising, but right now we are in one of the most hallowed and valuable pieces of real estate in racing. It is Gatorade Victory Lane at Daytona International Speedway, and there is the Tequila Patron ESM team in Victory Circle at Daytona. Celebrations unfolding. Pippo Durrani out of the car, the rest of the drivers and crew there, and we've said it many, many times, when you turn in to Gatorade Victory Lane at Daytona, whatever the race has been, it's a special moment. And when you've survived 24 hours with the performance these guys put on, pretty amazing stuff. And Pippo loving the moment. And I'll tell you what, we've talked about it, guys. We have seen a star born.
And when he gets his helmet off, they're going to want to check his driver's license, because he looks like he's about 12 years old.
And for Scott Sharp, his second class win and overall win here, winning in 1996 at this race. First, of course, for Van Overbeek and Ed Brown. And for Van Overbeek and Brown, their second WeatherTech championship. But right now, let's get down amongst the throng and Justin Bell.
Yeah, that is not just youthful enthusiasm. That is just the most amazing result for this young man. Pippo, you no wonder you jumped on top of the car. You deserved it. It was the most extraordinary result. Do you know what you just did?
No, I don't. Oh, I have no words. It's just amazing to be here. All these guys work incredibly hard the whole month since the roar, and it's kind of unreal to be here. You know, first ever race in America in sports car, first ever race with.
Yeah, he's big enough to pick the little guy up. Scott Sharp, you did it, brother.
Wow, it's just unbelievable. But just a complete team effort. I think that we went from the end of last year in Bahrain to where we are now, and the changes, the additions, just huge. So great way, obviously unbelievable way to start the year off.
Yeah, and of course, Ed somewhere. Ed, get over here. We need to talk to you. This is Ed Brown has been the mastermind behind this from Patron's point of view. Ed, you've won the Daytona 24 hours.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, that was the hardest 24 hours of my life, I tell you. You know, when you're not in the car, you're so nervous that something will happen, because this is the cruelest sport ever. But the team did unbelievable.
Yo.
The team was unbelievable. The HPD engine we had is fantastic. It's a great feeling.
Well, of course, it is a team effort. Every one of you got behind the wheel. You put a lot of time in. Johannes, so amazing to see you here winning with these guys. Great team. How does it feel?
It hasn't sunk in. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. Come so close to this, winning this race a couple times, and to actually do it overall with these guys words can't just describe it. It's amazing.
The great thing about these guys, they know exactly what they're going to drink tonight. Well done, guys.
I think there's any question of that. Boy, what an amazing deal. And there was Ollie Gavin crawling out of the car, and he too goes to the top, which you do. You've earned it. Now let's take a look at our Audi move of the race. And Cal, it was a beauty by these two Corvettes.
What a stunning duel here coming down to the wire, and it looked like Antonio Garcia was going to make the move. He outbreaks him down into turn one. Ollie Gavin hangs with him. Antonio slips just a little bit, and Ollie pounces and grabs the lead right back.
Pass, repass, that's what racing's all about. That's your Audi move of the race. And with our winners, it's Jamie Howe.
Well, we're still waiting for the teammates to get here, but Ollie Gavin, you climbed on the roof of this Corvette for the first North American win for you guys since 2013. That battle at the end, talk me through it.
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, Antonio was coming so quickly. I think he had fresher tires, and yeah, he's been so good in this car for the last couple of years, and I knew I was going to have a battle on my hands. And then when he caught me and we got in a bit of a tow, and he tried to pass me around the outside at turn one, and he was almost on the lock stop sideways, and I was still trying to get the spot back, and we're desperately trying not to touch. And I mean, it was as close as it possibly could get to us, you know, touching, but he's a fantastic teammate and an amazing guy, and I wouldn't really want to race anybody else that has kept it super clean. I'm just thrilled for everybody at Corvette Racing and our C7R, Tommy, Marcel, all the guys at Corvette Racing just done brilliantly the whole day. I mean, it's been tooth and nail the whole way against Ferrari, BMW, Ford, you know, it's been extraordinary.
You're one of these guys, you really think about the competition, you study all of the numbers before each race. What makes this particular win so special when you consider the competition you guys had?
It is very, very special. I mean, I've had atrocious luck here in the past, and my best result was last year, 3rd place. And so for me to get a win here today is just amazing. You know, I'm just so thrilled and happy for everyone, you know, the whole team. And, you know, our teammates Jan here, he did a brilliant job. Thanks, buddy. That was brilliant. And Mikey.
1 week, I have to work on this one.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm going to grab you real quick. It was such a strong battle at the end of this race. What was it like when you see that kind of action?
It's fantastic. Honestly, I thought that was, you know, when Antonio passed the Porsche, I thought, okay, that's probably it. But the guys at Corvette said, no, let's find a winner. It was fantastic.
You guys still finished on the podium. Congratulations. Thanks. Matt?
And Jamie, a special win here at Daytona on so many levels, especially here at PC. And Ken, I don't know who this win means more to, your mom Karen, who a year ago had a heart transplant, or you?
Well, I think it means a lot to everyone. You know, I'm pretty speechless right now. It's hard not to cry, to be honest, but I can't thank everyone enough for this amazing opportunity. You know, this is what the Mazda Road to 24 is all about. You know, I came through Mazda's ladder system, started there 5 years ago and took it step by step, and now we're here and we freaking won. So it's pretty cool. But I'm speechless. This team is amazing. These group of drivers, I can't thank them enough. This crew, my parents, everyone who's helped me get here. It's awesome.
Karen, special a year ago, you guys were watching this race on TV.
Yes, exactly. I had just gotten released from the hospital from a heart transplant, and we were sitting on the couch, and I said, gosh, maybe one day you'll be there. And we just didn't see this happening a year later, and I'm here now to enjoy it, and I feel amazing, and this has just been a wonderful opportunity for Kenton, and we're just so grateful to be here.
Congratulations. Great group of guys here at JDC Miller Motorsports. It's their first Rolex victory. Chris?
Well, Matt, it was an amazing race in GT Daytona. We had 7 different makes in the class, and Renee Rast, I heard your crew come up and say that was the hardest half an hour waiting to see if you guys could make it. How tough was it to manage the fuel situation?
I think it was one of my hardest races ever, but it was one of the best ones as well. I mean, it was an epic race. We had a tough fight with all of our competitors, and till the last minute we were saving fuel in our last stint. And somehow we managed it, but the guys did an awesome job. They were coaching me the last stint, and the Audi was great today, and it was just a nice Rolex 24 this year.
You know, the one thing I heard all week long is everybody said the speed of the Lamborghinis, but I did hear the Audi, everybody saying this was a proven car. Everybody had faith that it could make it to the end. It did.
Yeah, we were maybe not the fastest in one lap, but we had a very reliable car over 24 hours. This is what counts. We saw it already last year, and this year the Audi R8 won already many races, so thanks a lot to Audi and the team. They did a perfect job.
Yeah, Rene Rast, he's very lonely down here in Victory Lane. None of his teammates have showed up yet, Greg.
Absolutely. Well, they had a bit of a hike, didn't they? His second win here for Rene, for John Potter. First for Marco Seefried, but for Andy Lally, he's starting to stack up some numbers. His 5th Rolex 24 win.
He's got his own jewelry store. Plus the 4 he got for winning titles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but what a day. I mean, battles in all of the classes throughout. I mean, who would have thought that Scott Sharp and Wayne Taylor, who won together here 20 years ago, would be duking it out for the overall win here, albeit as a car owner now for Wayne Taylor. It was a fantastic battle. That 2-car had the speed all day. We said if it became a shootout at the end, they were going to be tough to beat, and that certainly was the case, Brian.
Well, and you look at the youth behind the wheel there at the end with Pippo Durrani. I mean, what a spectacular job he did throughout the roar and the race. Now, obviously, Wayne Taylor Racing is going to leave here disappointed. The last chance for a Daytona prototype to win, but more importantly, thoughts with Max Angelelli. He got in that car. Tommy, you and I talked about as a driver getting in a car that you knew had a problem. Max got in that number 10 car, knew it had a problem, knew the risk, and got out there, and we saw the car stopped on track, medical personnel attending to him after the race. So our thoughts with that whole Wayne Taylor team and Max Angelelli.
Absolutely. Jordan Taylor not feeling great coming in. That team left nothing in their pursuit of this win. They have nothing to hang their head about at all.
They finished second 3 times in the last 4 years, plus the penalty last year. So
frustrating.
So close.
Nothing but heart from Max, but the Corvette guys, I mean, what a finish and what a race to finally let those guys go after it. And we're going to hear more about it right now from Brian Hoy, but who's the counterpart to Dan Binks.
I told you guys, I asked the team about the fuel on the board, the number 4 machine. Well, it was this guy I was talking to. The smile on your face, though, when you said it's going to be close, that kind of gave it away just a little bit. How proud are you of this team?
Oh, my gosh. I just can't believe. I mean, we really were racing that hard to the end. You know, there was nobody was holding back. We had all the GM brass here. We had Mark Royce, Jim Campbell, Mark Kent. We put on a great show, and it's just it's so hard to have everything sink in because nobody's really slept since yesterday morning when they got up. So it's just it takes a while to absorb it, but it just feels fantastic.
Well, go enjoy it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. They have earned it. No question about that. And it is a team sport, and the drivers might get the accolades, but if that crew doesn't do what that crew did, they don't win.
Every single one of the winners today dealt with their own series of issues and won in different ways. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a fuel mileage managed as well as Magnus did when you're like, there's no way they can make it. And the car was running so slow, but they had enough gap.
Let's take a look at our Tequila Patron Endurance Cup points right now. It's the number 2 leading after the 4 segments. Prototype, a tie, as you can see in Prototype Challenge. A 4-place tie in GT Le Mans. And Magnus has it covered in GT Daytona. Pretty impressive stuff. And I'll tell you what, a huge thank you to the great job done by Justin, Jamie, Chris, and Matt down in the pits. And guys, some final thoughts here. Brian, let's start with you.
Well, I'll go back to the very beginning. We talked about change. We talked about this Daytona Rising project and how great it is for the fans and the competitors. We talked about the competition and how that was going to change. They've built this series over the last couple of years. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. WeatherTech being on board this year as the marquee, the title sponsor, and you look to 2017 and the changes that are coming, it just gets better every year.
Absolutely. Tommy?
Well, I'm going to keep it short. Tequila shots for everyone.
I like the way this man operates. Cal, we're looking forward to an amazing season. What do you take from this race looking ahead now to Sebring?
Well, what a start to the new WeatherTech Championship. Battles throughout all of the classes. The prototype battle is going to be intense, but those GT classes, unbelievable what we saw here today.
And I think the anticipation at GT Le Mans, obviously, with the 4 GTs, when they get it right, it's going to be awesome. But GT Daytona, what a season this could be in that class as well. It can't get more exciting than that. The next race, the mobile one, 12 Hours of Sebring. You're going to watch it March 19th, starting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on FS1. What a start to this 2016 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship at this fabulous running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. For Justin, for Jamie, for Chris, Matt, and everybody here in the booth, I'm Greg Creamer. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you a lot as this fabulous season unfolds, as we wrap things up here at Daytona Rising and the legendary races of Daytona Beach, Florida. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you from Sebring.